one. Milkshake. I drink it up.
Donnie,
Yeah.
Gus German here wants to dock the country. Oblige him.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hell, I can get you towed by 3 o'clock this afternoon with nail polish.
We have you 4-1.
I like those odds.
It's the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast.
I had both. I had a teacher who was like, "Okay, so today's test is shortcut keys." I was like, "You're fired," because like this
That's
is my
just
one
different
thing.
types of brains, though. It's like,
Well, it's like my
yeah.
world is open book, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fail because I don't recall something.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, it's starting up.
We are live. We are
we are
officially
live.
live.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, no, that would be. It's lovely. Just enter into our conversation about Photoshop again. This is definitely at least our second Photoshop conversation on the podcast. But
Hey, all
you
things nerd.
yeah, all things nerd,
Smoking hot
exactly.
tips.
But I appreciate your help in doing that logo because it's just obviously it's not my thing. Like in all the things, I'm not bragging about it, saying that I've figured all this stuff out on YouTube University. But that's how I've done all this stuff is just because I've just
Yeah.
like learned it over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, this year, I mean, the last 5 years has been great because you can pretty much any issue you have, like almost any issue, even with Premiere, where it's like,
Oh, yeah.
what's happening with this thing? And you
Oh, yeah.
can find a video or two.
Oh, for sure. Well, no, everything. And then like like at one point in time, I was trying to erase a portion of one of the letters, and somehow my erase. So the eraser is like the circle icon in Photoshop, and then it suddenly became a star, like a little T thing, but it was still erasing the same amount. But it wasn't the circle anymore. It was like a little star. And I was like, what happened? How is this possible? So I get on to, so I go over, because I'm using both monitors, because it's great if you have two monitors, you can be working on your project on one and then getting your tutorial over here on the other. So it's like this great thing. But so I do it all the time. But as I was glancing over to type in, why is my cursor a star now or whatever, I looked down and I saw that the caps lock was on. Then I clicked the caps lock off and came back to the circle. So it's like, see, things you learn by screwing it all up.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. Some of my favorite stuff I did at the Art Institute was in our Photoshop classes. I had it with my buddy Fred, and one of the assignments was great. It was to change the tone of a photo using color palettes and filters. And the photo was a little girl sitting on some steps, and I think it was just taking like a midday type of thing. So I took it and I added rain, and I made it my thing. I was sad. I was trying to create sad, so I dropped the saturation way down. I kind of highlighted her, but then put a bunch of like fake rain and stuff, and using motion blurs and all that nonsense. And it was mediocre to good at best. Fred created church sluts. he lit up the windows like the red light district.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was so good.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, like Amsterdam. It was fantastic.
Amsterdam Church.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Well, speaking of sluts,
Yeah, right.
we watched Gangs of New York this week. The 2002 Martin Scorsese epic. And I mean, well, I guess Cameron Diaz was into slut. She was just a pickpocket / was she a prostitute also or not?
I don't. No.
Not really.
I don't think so. No, she was a sneak thief. She was a pickpocket.
Because it's hard to tell because there's those scenes when they're in like the prostitute area
Right,
and she's
she's
there too,
there.
and so it's kind of like what's going on, and she's always kind of everywhere, like
Yeah.
literally everywhere, to the point where you're almost like you can write scenes without all the characters in it, Marty or
No.
whoever wrote
No,
it.
they all have to be there.
Yeah.
in every scene.
It was really kind of funny. It's been a long time. I watched it when it first came out, and 2002, which is the year that we all graduated from college. Well, should have.
Should have.
Yeah.
I got double. Major.
Hey,
No, yeah, you double majored.
Oh, I mean, I'm part of that.
Yeah, Nico, you transferred.
I switched. Yeah.
Maddie K got a master's at the same time, so
Ooh.
yeah, and stuff. So, but that was the year that I graduated with my degree that I use a lot.
Daily.
Daily, nearly daily, almost daily, daily adjacent. Never. But yeah,
Shout out Bible verses all the time. Isaiah 7:14.
yeah, it comes in handy
is
whenever.
it not the verse? You're just shouting chapters.
Yeah.
Just books and chapters. Well, what is that? No. I don't do that. I just shout out the book and the chapter and the verse. That's it.
I just know my Jeremiahs and my Nehemiahs. That's all.
That's right.
Deuteronomy 13.
Just get them straight. That's always the slog, man. Deuteronomy is the slog, because you start, when you're like, okay, this year's the year I'm reading the Bible straight through, and Genesis, Exodus, good, feeling good about Exodus, lots of action.
Sure, there's stuff happening.
Yeah,
It's
Leviticus, and then once you get to Deuteronomy, you're just like, this is the worst book I've ever read. And then you kind of, then once you get
Deuteronomy, more like, dude, I'm outie.
Right, for sure. Well, you get to Isaiah, Ezra, Nehemiah, the prophet books, those are good ones. So you start to get the stories of, David and Daniel and all this kind of stuff. So you're getting into good stuff. And then you get into like crazy prophets, the guys who are like definitely nowadays you might think maybe MDH, what's the God molecule? Ayahuasca type of thing, because they're having like some serious prophecies,
Joe Rogan
man.
business.
Yeah, some Joe Rogan stuff. Yeah. And then you get to the end and you're kind of like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, Ruth's a good one. Ruth's got some good stories in there.
If you said those last three to me in like a Jeopardy thing of like, are these books true or false? My answer would have been false for all three of those.
Yeah. But that's true.
I remember
It's been a bit.
Some of them, I think when I was in college, I was always a complete slacker in, Sunday school just as much as regular school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went back home from college and I was like, hey, Bob, I know all the books of the Bible. And he's probably like,
and now.
It's probably the best you're going to get, Eric.
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Right. Well, Eric and I were in confirmation class together. And so that was because we were the only two in the class, the only two boys.
Yes.
And so
very intimate.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't stay awake. Very intimate.
All I remember
I hated how much I just.
But you know why? Is because the it's that old 70s building heat, and so the room is just baking. Yeah, it
sits on you.
82 degrees and sweaty and dry, and you're just like, I could die, I guess, and I'd be all right.
We're talking about Blizz Blaz and Flim Flam, and I'm like,
who Blizz Blazed on the Flim Flam first in Deuteronomy? Go,
Eric. Flim Flam? No, it's Flim Flam. Dang it!
It was 50-50, you jerk.
I'm gonna go with Ezra.
Ezra.
There you go.
Tell you though,
You know who's better than Ezra?
Should we circle
Daniel
back to what we're actually supposed to be talking about?
He is he really is a master, isn't he? Daniel Day-Lewis.
As an actor. We're gonna talk about this. He is the only thing that saves that movie for me now.
Right.
Yep.
Back then, this movie blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Watching it again,
Yeah.
if he's not in it, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's a 10-hour feeling movie.
Yeah.
My gosh, this movie falls apart for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It really
falls
does.
apart bad.
It's really uneven for me. Yeah.
It could be $1.45, and you'd be all right. This is good.
Yeah.
But every scene is just too long, and
Well, not all entirely necessary.
right, and definitely not necessary.
It's definitely, you could tell he's like, Scorsese wanted to cover all these little history tidbits to really try and lay down what all the goings on.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this is the first time for me watching it.
Oh,
And while
Wow.
I could appreciate it, that first hour was a slog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Well, yeah.
God.
So
Yeah.
Act
so-
2, I'm like, okay, Act 2, great.
Mm-hmm.
Woof.
So for the listeners, Gangs of New York is set in 1800s.
New York.
It's 1800s New York,
18.
shockingly.
40s at very beginning.
Yeah, right, 1840 to 1860, something like that. The thing you don't know at the beginning of the movie is that, and you find out, is that this movie is centered around the events leading up to the draft riots in New York City. This is when, during the Civil War, President Lincoln basically ran out of soldiers, so he started drafting people. But there is a way to circumvent the draft by paying $300 and having somebody cycle in for you. Now, $300 in 18 something, somebody calculated out, is about $2,900 today. So $3,000 today. Wow. Which then created a class problem where the poor definitely could not afford $3,000 and the rich could. So it was a bunch of rich kids not going to war. It also cycled around the immigration issue into New York City, where there were people that, and these, I believe these were all real names, like these real gangs existed. That there was like the natives, which were the people born in the, we'll be very careful with the term native there. But there was the non-immigrant children in New York City, did not get off a boat.
Let's say modern. Let's say like modern for the 1860s.
Yes,
like modern.
Right. There's
because everybody obviously was an immigrant at some point in time. But let's just say these guys were probably like fourth generation, give or take. Yeah.
Right. So they were born here. Versus
parents who have served in wars for America,
Revolutionary
so
War,
strong feelings about that.
Right.
So kind of is
yeah.
Right. So they have these immigrants into New York City, which is predominantly Irish and other countries, but they were immediately treated like garbage. But they also, and they had a great scene where they do this, where these Irish immigrants would get off the boat, get heckled by the natives, quote unquote, and then basically told, you're worthless and worth nothing. You're not going to get a job here. You should get back on the boat. And then they've got the
army recruiter.
The army recruiters literally right there saying, like, you want food? I got food for you. Sign up. You're here now. Fight for this country.
Good money.
Well, and you get citizenship immediately. Citizenship, and you're in the army. Boom.
Right. So you basically get off the boat, walk across the dock, sign your name, put on a uniform, and get back on a boat.
Back on another boat.
And it sounds like an exaggeration. That really happened. Like these people were literally hours difference between getting off and getting on to another boat. So that's what this movie's about. But it starts out with Leonardo DiCaprio's father is played by Liam Neeson, who is a priest who is the leader of like the Irish immigrant gang called the Dead Rabbits, where they're basically just trying to say, leave us alone. Let us have this little area. We're fine. Knock it off. And Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Bill the Butcher, leads the natives. He's like, no, negative. This is our country. We fought for it. Our grandparents fought for it. Everything in here is ours by right. You can't have it. So it starts out with them battling, and Priest dies. When Priest dies, Bill the Butcher basically says, there's a bunch of like Old Testament type stuff that happens, but he basically says, take the kid to this place called Hellgate, which is essentially an orphanage. It'd probably be the equivalent of like a military academy at this point, where they just like dump these orphans and kids. Time passes. Bill the Butcher becomes a very prominent character inside this 5 Points area of New York City, starts running businesses. He basically wins and then runs all of this area in New York City, in lower New York City. And it's in lower Manhattan kind of thing. It's down by Wall Street, that area. But Leonardo DiCaprio comes back and is set on vengeance, redemption for his father. But he ends up kind of folding into Bill the Butcher's crew. All the while he's got this like 50-50 scenario of like, I need to avenge my father, but it's also been 16 years and I need food. Like he's got this weird dichotomy of like, well, this isn't so bad. I mean, I'm upset about it, but this isn't so bad. And then it's that. And then eventually, he gets discovered, then they form apart, and then they bring in the Dead Rabbits, which was like it was like Voldemort. Like, you don't talk about dead rabbits. They come back in. All the while, the subtext of this draft day is happening, or these draft riots. So there's this big super battle, this monster fight that's about to happen, and the Union Army blows them all up to dispel these rights. But it's that's the movie. Ta-da! And credits. Boom, bang, bang. It's when I first saw it, for if I had been doing these 5 out of 5, because like Daniel Day-Lewis is award worthy, absolutely. The
That's his Brendan Gleeson, I think, for such a small part that he has. He's so good in it, yeah.
Especially being for not so well known. And I don't think Brendan Gleeson at the time was the Brendan Gleeson now.
No, that was his. I think that was his first movie, if not his. Yeah, Braveheart was number 1. This was like real early in the career.
Yeah, top 5, first 5. So, right, it's fantastic. The production design, the costume design, some of the cinematic type stuff is amazing. It's really, really good. On second watching and with time, maybe a 4. Maybe, I mean, it's a strong 3, but it might drop into 4 because I think Daniel Day-Lewis is Daniel Day-Lewis is still phenomenal. Like I would love to see the script that he was given, because I know that's not the performance that he doled out. You know, like the words on paper are not what he did. So that is full credit to him and his ability and his method acting and all that stuff, because there's stuff in there that just would not translate to text.
Well, it's still
the
like
words,
in
reverse, right?
I don't know if he's necessarily changing the dialogue. His delivery of it is such that it makes you feel like it's just off the cuff. That's the magic of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Is he creates this, I don't know, he just has this ability to say things in a way that makes you wonder if he just came up with it. But that's what good actors do. That's what great actors do.
Oh no, absolutely.
But you would, and as someone
like
who I'm such a huge fan of Leo, and I just think this is like one of his worst. And I think that he just didn't have a whole lot to work with. I don't know what it was. His character was just very like vengeance heavy, but he was, I mean, there's a lot going on in his character, but there's something about that era of Leo that just wasn't hitting. Cameron Diaz, same thing, where it's just like, I love her. I think she's just like blah in this movie. Like their relationship and their scenes together are just, they're rough to get through because they're
awkward. Hard because it's really hard to dial in on what their motivations are. Yeah. You know, I think I don't want to blame the fact that there was such amazing star power around. Like Daniel Day-Lewis is probably hard to be around in general, but when you try to look at the motivation of, he goes by Amsterdam in the movie. When you look at his motivation, it's like, all right, so you want to avenge your father's death. He's like helping him by solving like the boxing problem, and it also like saves his life at one point. So like that should cause this insane character conflict of like, wait a minute.
I mean, he's kind of seen right after where he like loses his mind a little bit.
But even that was like, this is a little bit of a weird overreaction to this this thing. So
but he's loving him. He didn't have a dad. I mean, that's the interesting thing is he didn't have a dad, and Bill the Butcher's kind of the closest thing he's ever had to that, and so he kind of starts to love him.
Yeah, and Bill the Butcher has all this charisma, and everyone wants to be liked by him, and they all fear him. Yeah. So for him to take interest in DiCaprio, you know, of course, just any young man's going to be like, oh man, the cool guy that I'm supposed to hate likes me. Yeah.
And then you come across...
That was my problem. It's just that whole...
Well, see, that never bothered me. And the reason for that is because even his first introduction to Bill after his... Like when he comes back after being at the orphanage and kind of growing up, is Bill the Butcher still has like a shrine to his dad, the priest, in his like office. So it kind of set up with like, even though I killed your dad, I respected him and loved his philosophy. And he says that a little bit too. So that's where I think like the conflict comes in. And I really like that part of the story. I think that that's very interesting, that if you think about it, like falling in love with somebody who you thought you hated, and also who hated you at one point because of how you were born, but now treats you like a son. It's like that can be real confusing, and so I liked that part.
Maybe
of
it was the Cameron Diaz stuff that threw this off for me.
Yeah,
the whole like love interest.
I don't love the character very much. I mean, it's fine, but they were in a weird. I mean, this is 20 years ago, so you know they're in their early 30s at this point in time, but they're playing characters that are supposed to be like late teens, early 20s. So some of that stuff just didn't fly for me this time around. And I was like, I don't. And then the kid from E.T.
Yeah,
who
Elliot.
Which is funny because the only thing I've ever remembered seeing him in.
Oh, that is him.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah.
Is he's in The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix that came out like 2 years ago, but he looks old in that movie or in that show, like because he plays a dad with a bunch of kids.
Was that like 3 years ago? Or something?
Yeah, and he's really good in it. But so seeing him in this, I was like, I think a movie is like, oh, this is 20 years ago that this movie was shot. I was like, oh, okay, which means that it was made 20 years after E.T., which is super weird too. Like to think about it like being like that. Like he was 10 in E.T., now he's 30 in Gangs of New York, and now he's 50 in this last show that I just saw him in. So I've seen him in 3 things spanning 40 years. yeah, which is super weird. But he was good. He was better than most in it. It's got a lot of actors though that are famous now, or at least that you see all the time, like Brendan Gleeson.
Like very recognizable for sure.
Yeah, a couple of the more famous Irish actors that are in it are in everything now, like in all of Snatches movies. What's the guy's name? Why can't I
Just
never
go with that?
Yeah,
Just call it
all the
Snatches
Snatches movies.
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie. I always want to call him like Bob Thompson. There's just never it just never comes out the way it should. I don't know why.
There's that guy Snatch. Yeah, him.
Yeah, Snatch Thompson.
He did it. Smoochy, whatever the hell's name is.
I think it's because you said, "Oh, it's that guy." Yeah, right.
Right.
No, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I ruined my brain by
who's on
saying
first
his name
problem.
without realizing it's his name. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So
as a first timer though, Eric, that's fascinating. How did you feel?
Okay, so
That's crazy.
it didn't take me long before I went, is this a movie I'm gonna laugh at the whole time?
Right.
Because it sets up and it's like, I'm like, oh, Liam Neeson's in this. He probably won't be in it for long.
Yeah.
And yeah, he gets his gang together and they're walking and they're cool. And this big tough looking crew walks out onto a plaza, standing there, and then pretty soon some boots walk up and pans up, and it's Billy the Butcher, and then a absurd amount of dudes show up on his side, and you're like, oh no, Liam Neeson's in trouble. And then Liam Neeson's like, you said this is a war, so I brought warriors. I don't know what you brought, your silly little fellas over there. And then a bunch more Irish and Scottish and every type of immigrant group shows up for him. And Bill the Butcher yells out some things. And then they charge each other, and it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be intense. And then it gets stylized.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's guitars, like...
Yeah.
And it's like, they almost... You know the violence that's happening. And it's a choice, and I'm fine with it, where it's like he doesn't want to show it bluntly. He wants to hint it, like, oh, these guys are getting their... fish hooked? Is that what they call it? Like their cheeks torn open, and people are getting bludgeoned to death and stabbed, and all these things are happening. But it's kind of slow-mo and stylized, and again, there's the guitars, and I was just like, I started cracking up. And I was like, oh boy, it's early, and this should be a big deal, and I'm already laughing. And then it pans out, and it's like, New York. You know, when you see all these people dead.
Yeah.
New York, 1843, whatever it is. But then it jumps forward 16 years, and so for the next 45 minutes, it's like borderline a musical for me.
Right.
I keep wanting people to just start singing.
That's
Bust into
great.
song.
That's a great thought. It's almost Les Miserables.
It's straight up. He's like, I'm gonna make a musical, but there just won't be the musical numbers.
Yeah.
Because it's Leo's back. He meets up with his childhood friend after Liam Neeson's killed, and he tries to attack people with his knife, and he runs away. And a little kid that's also in this gang at the very beginning. He tries to help him. Years later, it's Elliot, E.T. guy. And he immediately is like, hey, I helped you way back when. So immediately the friend knows who he is. Okay.
Yep.
The jig's up already in a small secret way.
Even though, by the way, that kid who played Leo as a kid, like, almost doesn't have a face. Like, he could have grown up to be anything. He could have grown up to be like a black woman, and you would have been like, is that you? I don't remember your face, because it's the most generic kid face I've ever seen.
Nondescript.
Yeah.
Irish looking, but
yeah.
Right. There's 2 eyes, a nose.
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
mouth.
exactly.
So
I
he had
remember
everything
you.
You needed.
You had a
for
nose when you were a
face.
kid, right? Yeah, it's like that. Yeah. So, anyways.
But okay, so where the musical thing comes in for me is 20-year-old Elliot is talking to Leo, and he's giving him the lay of the land. Oh, these are the Bowery boys over here. Those are the he-she's, and here's the this, and here's the blah, and all these things that you can't say in movies anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like,
And totally straight up. Yeah. And I'm just waiting because the visuals, the costumes, the production design, it is amazing.
yeah.
But it's also like raping your eyeballs every second.
Yeah.
It just is so much all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, there's just this over-sensory thing of like, I could have been watching CGI cats for all it mattered. My eyes were just kind of like,
Well, one of the reasons, though, too, is because in this movie in particular, I'm trying to think if he's done it in other films, but he jammed so much into the frame at every moment.
Yeah.
And also, there was never a break because for whatever reason, he decided that's the reason it felt like a musical or like a montage, was because he did all of these fade in and fade outs. He never did like hard cuts. So it was just this constant movement of fading in and out, and then hordes of people constantly on the screen. And so you're hunting for the person who's talking. And I don't know if it was this for you guys, but I watched it on HBO. Is that how you guys watched it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if this was HBO's fault or if this was the original sound mix or if it was just how it was coming through on my speakers, but it was like the music was like here and the dialogue was like way down here. And then there was a lot of dialogue that was clearly ADR that was either done live, like on the set, or later. So sometimes it was like totally not the person's voice. It was just weird. So the movie has this clunky pacing. So when there's 12 people on screen, you don't know who's talking, especially when the sound mix is so bad. So I was just like, ugh.
I listened with my earphones because I had to be in here because I needed a solid internet connection.
Yeah.
So I just plugged in, and it was fine. I didn't notice that, but I could see that with speakers. I feel like so many movies, if I'm watching on my TV, I'm like, I'm missing most of the dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
That's why so many people watch movies with subtitles, because they can't. Which I don't understand how. Like I don't know if that's.
There's a button that says CC.
Well, problem solved. Done and done. I'm gonna start doing that. And then Jack Tammany
My dad does.
was just a lot. Like that character was a lot. So that first 40 minutes, even though it's like this boring slog, it's also this like visual, just like donkey punch, just like pounding you in the head with stuff. You're just like, oh god, there's
Just
so many things to
everyone
look
is
at.
so dressed. There's so much to like. There's so many patterns on the men's trousers,
Yeah.
waistcoats, and then the women, and it's like, and so they're banging out. They're like, here's those fashion plates we studied. Boom!
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, and the grime, and it's like they're living in a sewer though,
Yeah.
essentially.
And Bill the Butcher's speaking Bible verses. So there's that too.
Right.
So it really does feel like a musical.
And everyone's got an accent, and
Yeah.
you know almost none of them. It's their real accent, you
Right,
know? And
right.
so it's like, so with Leo, and even, what's her name? Not Claire Danes.
Cameron
CD,
Diaz.
Cameron Diaz.
Ugh, I wish it was
Um,
Claire Danes.
All I could think was like, well, they're doing pretty well,
Yeah.
considering. That's how I was coming off.
The
of
accents
them.
were
I
really
was
well.
There was a lot of,
expecting
like-
her to be awful, so I was like, oh, she wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like Brad Pitt and Troy moments where they're like talking, and then the accent disappears. Then whoop, and it comes back, and then it disappears, and whoop, it comes
Yeah.
back. And then, there's a lot of accent dropping in some of this stuff, and I'm almost wondering if it wasn't Scorsese being like, all right, give me this accent, and then whatever the dialogue was so rich with the accent. They're like, okay, we got to dial that back because I have no idea what you just said.
Sometimes that's what happens though. You get too heavy on the accent, and then you sort of lose
the
lose
dialogue
the
falls off,
rest.
yeah.
Yeah. The
It's,
John C. Riley though. John C. Riley was pretty good, and he wasn't a comedy star yet, so it kind of it
Right.
worked. It was a good show. It was a good movie for
Around,
him.
like when Chicago, right?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's just when he was making a name
Yeah.
before Steve Brule,
Before Step Brothers, you know.
before the greatest character ever.
Yeah,
I want to
probably ever.
see Bill the Butcher and Dr. Steve Brule interview.
Have a conversation
boy.
together.
Make that happen.
Yeah. Why do you not like horses? It'd just be fun. Let's do that. Let's get them together for that.
Bill
but
the
yeah,
Banker.
I think the hard part about it too is that in the first viewing, you don't know what's happening, right? You don't know there's the underlying
It's a lot
draft
going on.
riots. You have no idea what it's just you're following this story.
I'm trying to
It's-
catch
it's-
up, man.
It's a pure like redemption vengeance story. And then I think that's why in the second viewing I was a little disappointed with it because it's like there's basically 2 hours of buildup that is disrupted by cannon fire.
Mhm.
Like a cannon
Mhm.
comes in and destroys all of this effort.
Right.
Mhm.
And then you're just like, wait, what? And then there's the twin towers at the very end, which is like, well, whoops. But
Yeah.
the World Trade Centers, the very last scene in the movie is the World Trade Center.
Yeah, shows
But it came
time
out in
passing on the
2002,
graves.
though.
No, I'm not.
'Cause they
there
did it
was
on
no way-
purpose, right? As an homage.
100.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's
'Cause it came out
Yeah,
in
I was
02.
waiting. I was like,
Yeah.
are they gonna have the towers that disappear? Okay.
Right.
yeah, it was like it was just like it's not gonna translate. But what I'm getting at is that it just felt like such a letdown that
Right.
you got all this stuff and then literally 3 cannonballs from a ship in the harbor disrupts the whole
Mhm.
point of the
The
movie.
big final face-off is coming. The two
Yeah.
gangs. It's a repeat. It's cycling back. It's
Yeah.
bookends from the beginning. But
Yep.
instead of Liam Neeson, it's his son now taking on Bill the Butcher, who is now the big boss.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it's not Deus Ex Machina because something doesn't swing in to save the day. Something comes in to just wreak havoc, and I don't know what you
Yep.
call that.
Machina Deus Ex.
Day Lewis.
Machina de Lewis.
Las Lewis.
And it was
The-
really interesting too that the amount of stuff that they tried to hide with, like you said, the stylized fight scene where there was people getting slashed, but doing the stupid like, okay, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3 action, and then I want you to turn and screen at the camera, and then we're gonna cut. That happened like 90 times in the first
Yeah.
fight. So there's all that where they're like, we're not gonna show blood, but then we're gonna show it, or we're gonna do like a close up of a fishhook, but not like you're not gonna see. But then, like when they stabbed Liam Neeson, there was like a water fountain of blood coming
Yeah.
out of him. And then when Amsterdam does stab Bill the Butcher at the end, again, it's just like a fountain pen of,
Oh yeah, he gets shot in the face. He's like,
and you're like, wait, you took all this time to not do it here, but then in these two scenes, it's like you ran out of budget. But you're Martin Scorsese, so I know you had budget. There's a lot of decisions
And
that are confusing or inconsistent. Where you're just like,
I think it's
what?
like he was worried he's gonna lose even his R rating or something. Where it's like, because if you showed all that violence, you're probably NC-17 at
yeah,
that point.
true.
Oh, back then, yeah.
One of my
Yeah,
least favorite
don't mind
things too,
the 15-minute scene in the brothel where it's just boobs out everywhere.
for no reason. Yeah.
Right.
I was really trying to figure out what was going on because finally I figured out it was like her corset was like up into like where her cleavage would be, and so because I was just like, what is she wearing? Like, what is going on in
Was
this
it
scene?
like an under bust?
Yeah,
bustier
but
or
then
something?
the soft clothy part that would be over the breasticles was hanging down, so it was just very confusing. But clearly somebody did their wardrobe research. It drives me crazy when movies and directors, I assume, do this. You know, maybe editors decide, I don't know, whoever makes the decision to shoot slow motion stuff not in slow motion. Like, I hate that. Like, if you think about like the and it's not his fault because they didn't have the budget for it probably, but like Reservoir Dogs, this is the kind of slow motion I'm thinking of when they are doing their slow walk once they're all in their black and white suits. It's not actual slow motion, meaning that they didn't speed up the frame rate of the
It
camera.
wasn't 70 frames. A second.
Yeah, in order to slow it down. And he did it all the time in this movie. And not only did he do it all the time in this movie, he also did it like he did the opposite, where he would actually speed up the frame rate but then leave it as 24 frames per second. So it would look, or not the frame rate, rather the shutter speed. So like the part where he stabs him and then the blood spurts in his eye, when you see that and you notice that like it seems like jagged, like it's not, it just looks weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why he did all these things. Like, if you want to make a really dynamic slow motion fight scene, shoot it in 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second, and then slow it back down and make it look cinematic. But instead, it just looks amateur to me, anyways. I just think it looks weird.
I think he had these little flourishes of style, of like stylistic choices, but they weren't cohesive.
Right.
And I think what happens in the beginning doesn't come back till maybe you kind of hear kind of rock or guitar music again, like for the end credits.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come up again, and you're like, why did you have a Mountain Dew commercial moment?
Right. Exactly.
Here,
Exactly.
And you just dump it.
And
And
then
there's
nothing.
like the parts too where he's introducing the gangs feels very Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I need to go watch all the Scorsese movies because I just haven't. So I can't judge if it's like, oh, that's Scorsese's thing. Because it really felt like he was trying to piggyback off of what was hip at that time. And he's going off of Smoochie or whatever.
Yeah.
Snatch, yeah.
Guy Thompson.
Box stock. Yeah.
His wheelhouse, in my opinion, is like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s sort of feel. That's his wheelhouse to me. Things like Goodfellas, Casino, I think is his best movie by far. I think is his best film. But I think that sometimes like film school guys from like the 70s just do weird stuff that they did back then.
They just want to experiment.
Yeah, and so you're just kind of like, yeah, all right. Yeah. Like, I love The Irishman. I thought The Irishman was fantastic. I thought that one felt closer to Casino than anything else in terms of how it was. The Departed was real weird. For some reason, for me, it felt similar to Gangs of New York. Real clunky and kind of weird, and also there's so one of the sets is the police department, and then one of the sets is like Matt Damon's character's like high rise, and it's clearly a soundstage and clearly a fake background, and it's terrible, like terrible, and I just hate that. Like, why would you make it look so bad when you are Martin Scorsese and you have this budget? Like, that just made zero sense to me.
But yeah, this movie definitely kind of gets lost in its own weeds. Again, I think because he's just like, I want to have this history, I want to have this little thing, and it's like where the movie gets good is essentially where he just plops the camera down and lets Daniel Day-Lewis just talk, like that scene where he's just after he got shot and DiCaprio saves them, and they're in the brothel, and Leo had gone upstairs with Cameron Diaz.
With Claire Danes, it's okay.
Claire Danes.
With Kate Winslet.
Thinking, yeah.
Yep.
and he just like sits down and he just has this monologue. I was just like, yep, there's your movie right there. It's those moments hit, and they hit enough to overcome all the wacky disjointedness and just kind of over the top stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that he failed too was when you first watch it, the concept of the issue, the concept of the problem is not properly explained. And what I mean by that is in the 1800s in New York City, the government wasn't necessarily set up, right? So they have metropolitan police, but then they also have,
if they even have them yet.
well, they have, they use two terms. It's like metro and something. But it was basically like the concept of the police and the fire department we have now did not exist. They were basically privatized, right? Which is one of the reasons we watch this movie is because of the interesting current social debates about socialism, blah 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 blah. This is a movie that is before all of this.
If this movie came out in 2021, you would think that it was written as a commentary on the Trump administration and the surrounding sort of like geopolitical, semi-racist sort of culture that seemed to emerge
100%.
during those 4 years. That's what was interesting about it, was that watching it through that filter, you're like, ugh, this came out now. You would think it was way on the nose about current times.
Say, oh, these liberal Hollywood blasting us.
Absolutely.
And,
exactly.
So where it was getting at was where it failed was that it didn't really fully explain the fact that the fire department did not exist in the current iteration of the fire department we know of. It was these competing quote unquote clubs or organizations that were like, no, I'm the fire department. No.
Trying to get all the fire jobs.
Right. They're trying to get the fire or like the police or security or all of this stuff was not set up as a social program. It was set up as like independent, privately owned, whatever. So we're constantly fighting for territory. And then you had the Tammany Hall type stuff, which was these rich guys who were trying to manipulate and control and determine this stuff. But even they couldn't agree necessarily. So they were just in it for the profit of it. Right. And just kind of like, listen, if the building starts on fire, screw it. I get paid either way kind of thing. So they weren't necessarily in the right frame to better society as like the governor or the mayor. They were in the frame of saying, how do I make more money off of this type of stuff? Yeah. I mean, there's a point where he literally offers, they're trying to buy votes to remain in power. And he says like, I'll give you 10 cents for every Irish vote or something like that. And then a second later, he's meeting with Bill the Butcher and says, I'll give you 10 cents for every native vote. And so it's like a buying of votes. And it's a really, really, like I said, you watch this movie now with today's lens, and maybe that's why it stung a little while watching it, because back when it came out in 2002, it was like, oh, this is ridiculous. This isn't a thing that happens. And now it's like, oh yeah, no, I watched that on TV the other day. Yeah. Right. I watched the Capitol riots, which felt a lot like the draft riots. You know, it's like the fact that stuff like this has now circled back, that we're in the 1800s now. Yeah. With this type of stuff is like, maybe that's why it stung more, is because like this felt like hyperbole fiction of like, oh, I understand that this happened, but there's no way in today's civilized society, 2002, this happens again. And now we're here, and the bison shaman only eats organic stuff in prison. Like, oh my God, like we're back. It's the 1800s again. Like, what is going on?
Oh, well, no. We never left. It's always been the same. Humans are just going to always be the same. Nothing's ever going to progress. We'll get incrementally better every 100 or 200 years.
Guess, well,
that's about it.
We move forward, but we just kind of do this.
Yeah.
There's always a back.
Yeah. It's like watching a Snippy Thompson movie. Just you're always bouncing back and forth through the plot, you know? That's how it is.
Snippy
Yeah.
Thompson.
All right, so favorite moment, cringy moment, go.
Eric, fresh in your head.
It's fresh in your noggin.
Fresh in my butt.
Snippy, Snippy, Snippy Thompson.
Probably that scene I was saying, the Bill the Butcher, where he kind of he lets his guard down scene.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I don't want to say it's cringy, but it was irritating. Was the whole buildup of Brendan Gleeson's character, who had been kind of on the sidelines, and then DiCaprio's like, "Hey, we're gonna clean up this town. We need a sheriff, a real
run for
sheriff who's
sheriff."
gonna do things." And so there's this whole cute little montage of the Gleeson giving a speech and Bill the Butcher's guy is giving a speech, and it comes up to voting day, and they do their fun little. Essentially, it's like another musical number where they're all intimidating everyone. It's all voter intimidation with like
Voter
a little
fraud,
jig
yeah.
underneath it. And that happens, and then Bill the Butcher goes up to Brendan Gleeson, and Gleeson's like, "Do you want to fight out in the street, or what do you all say, people, or do you want to have a democratic way of dealing with this?" He's like, "Come on, Bill, come inside. We'll, let's walk towards the future or whatever." And then Bill the Butcher just grabs a giant butcher knife and just hacks it into his back.
Yeah.
And then just kills him with his own club. And you're just like,
Yeah.
like I get, again, historically wanting to tell these moments and like the how hard it was for people to kind of bring legitimacy and actual sense of justice to those streets.
Mhm.
So it's in that context I get it, but it's like as a movie you're just like, that was 20 more minutes that went nowhere. Okay.
Yeah. It's great.
Matt?
So cringe moment for sure, and I've seen it. This is at least 3 times, maybe 4, but at least 3 times. Because I went heavy through a Scorsese phase, like late 2000s, and but it was it's funny I didn't even remember this part so they're having the illegal boxing match, and they're all betting on the boxing, and then Tammany, the mayor's guys, come in. And so the police are coming in to raid this illegal gambling match. Mm-hmm. And so Tammany, the mayor, and Bill the Butcher are having this conversation about like, what are we doing? What's going on? Why can't we do this? Well, we can't have fighting within city limits. And then Leo's character is like, did you say city limits? Well, where's the city end? And so they moved the boxing match to outside. I'm like, oh, so the kingpin of New York it never occurred to him to have the boxing match outside of the city
On the
limits.
docks.
Yeah. Okay. That had to be Leo's thing that he came up with. I hate stuff like that in movies when the random character is like, well, why don't we put it outside of the city? And they're like, oh, that's brilliant. It's just stuff like that. Drives me crazy. But favorite.
Is that like the Footloose moment?
Yeah.
You can't dance in the city limits.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't say I could not dance on a tractor.
Yeah. Right. And like definitely sort of honorable mention is Leo and Cameron Diaz having their like almost sex scene early in the movie when they're like taking off her corset and they're having the conversation, and it's just like, again, you're just like, is this gonna end at some, because I know they're not gonna do it, so when are we gonna get to the part where they don't do it and they stop talking? It was brutal, rough.
Oh.
But my favorite scene is definitely when Leo saves his life when Bill the Butcher's about to get assassinated, and he jumps and fights him, and the conversation that they kind of that they have, his sort of monologue that he has to the crowd, and then he's like, continue the show, and then the poor people in like blackface come creeping back out to like continue the show. But that Daniel Day-Lewis's character's point of view was so strong. That's what carries the movie, and that's like without a doubt the best thing about this movie.
I do like. Sorry, just thinking of that moment in the theater where they're throwing fruit and like lettuce up on
Yeah.
at the actors, but they're throwing so much food, and I was like, I think these people are all starving.
Are they not starving? Yeah.
And they literally, in history, they live in a drained like sewer.
Yeah.
That's where this landfill little spot, and yeah, there they are, giant heads of like lettuce and cabbage, and
Right.
okay,
Like, don't you
guess
want
they
that
don't have to
tomato?
eat that bad.
Yeah. It was better for their bellies to throw it than to put it in their mouth holes.
So a cringy part for me is it's got to be all the Cameron Diaz stuff. Like the one is well, I'm not that into Cameron Diaz, so for her to be like
How
the
dare you.
ultimate pursual of like yes, she's the one to go after is never really rung true for me. But the scene where they go upstairs and he basically forces himself on her and she's like, I'll bite you. And he's like, and then like she's chomping at him, and then they ended up.
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
"All right, get this out of here. I don't need this.
It's rough.
Favorite parts. Well, I guess, and the other side cringe part is, well, it's my favorite part, but it makes it the worst part is the historical tie-in to the draft riots. I thought was crazy good, of like, because that concept in and of itself is super interesting about all this stuff that's out of place that causes it to basically incite into this monster mob nonsense.
Yeah.
Is a really interesting movie. And it almost feels like that's a movie. I don't know why we had this other stuff as well.
Right.
Like you either have the Dead Rabbit Native movie or you have the draft riots movie, but you don't need them both. and that's why it's like my favorite part, but the cringy part is because I think both of those stories independently are amazingly good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the cringe part is trying to smash them together into a movie.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially like I said at the end when it's like, we're gonna have it. Leo's got a top knot. Let's do this.
We're doing
And then
this.
and then 4 cannonballs come in and ruin the whole thing. And you're like, well, okay, that was
Yeah.
a lot of build up for nothing.
And everyone dies. Well, so a strong 3 out of 5 at this point, but
Yeah.
not
Sure.
a movie that aged all that well, yet with some quite timely
Right.
things
And
in
other
term-
things that prove to be very ageless.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
like racism and hatred and white on white hatred and things that you don't think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
during that riot when they're just grabbing black men and like, oof, there's
Yeah.
that one where they grab this guy and they stab him and they're dragging him and he dies as he's being drugged. And, like those things were incredibly effective.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and it's like there's the violence that makes you go, oh, instead of the slow-mo guitar riff again, Mountain Dew commercial crap that I was feeling at other times.
Yeah.
Really out of place. Really out of
Yeah.
place. It's right. It's like they had, and I don't know the story, but it's always interesting when it feels like maybe that some guy sat in a meeting and had a great idea and spoke up, and then everyone's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then like down the road, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, that wasn't a good idea, but we can't reshoot it at this point. We can't go
I
back and
wanted to
redo
look
that."
real quick before we got off this topic. So I believe that, yeah, it was based on a book from 1927.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so it was based on a book, 1927, and then the screenplay was written by 47 people. Well, 3 people, but that's plenty, you know.
Yeah.
So that's just a thing. When it's like, okay, whenever it's written by, whenever it's story by, written by, and not and with or something else, you're like, okay, cool, gotcha. Yeah, I know what I know what's going on here. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Well, 3 out of 5. Good job. So, I mean, 5 out of 5 if it was a Mountain Dew commercial, though. That would be
If
one.
it was a 3-hour Mountain Dew commercial,
Mountain Dew
it was totally tubular.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that wow. I just had 7 different strokes just then.
7 strokes for 7 different folks.
Yeah, farted at the same time. That was Gangs of New York. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast. We are now going to shift into Nerds After Dark. We're going to catch up on all the things of the week. So find us on Smoking on SoundCloud. No, they're not on SoundCloud. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube and the Facebook. All right, folks, we'll see you next week. And now, shifting to Nerds After Dark. Sponsored by Zima. Cool, refreshing malt beverage, clear. Clear as the day. Clearer than Leo's pee in Gangs of New York. Which is not. It was probably.
That doesn't
really
happen in
yellow.
that movie. He doesn't pee.
No one pees because no one's got water.
Oh, did we not talk? We did. We totally skipped over the like
There's so
the
much in that movie. Yeah.
well, there's a lot going on in that movie for sure. But the brutality of Bill the Butcher when he catches Leo trying to assassinate him, throws him down on the table, and then like 6 rocking headbutts.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. And that's the kind of thing we're like, all right, listen, Daniel Day-Lewis, I've seen you out of character. How do you get to this place? Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Yeah.
Because Daniel Day-Lewis in person is very like, hello, yes, I'm very happy. I appreciate it. He's so soft, and then he gets these roles like There Will Be Blood and Gangs of New York and Lincoln, and you're like, I don't want to say I'm going to diagnose you with DID right now, but holy balls, man, you have some demons to be able to get to a place where you're like, all right, so Martin, and I know he doesn't talk like this, but he's probably also one of those people that is like, doesn't get out of character until they roll the credits. It was like, Martin, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw this guy down on the table. I'm going to get up on him. Should I punch him? I'm not going to punch him. Headbutts. Bill the Butcher, headbutts. Just whack, whack, whack.
Yeah. And that would be, I mean, well, like his There Will Be Blood scene with
the milkshake. And
the milkshake bit where he's like throwing the things at the kid, the bowling pins. I mean, that was all for real.
Yeah.
Like Paul Dano was just like, I didn't know he was going to throw a bowling pin at me. That
Spoilers.
was very
I still need to
scary.
watch that one.
Oh, you need to see that. Yeah, that's a good one. That one's on the old Netflix right now. So it'll be an easy one to watch for sure. So
Well, it's not an easy one to watch, but it would be an easy one to get access to watch.
easy one to get access to, exactly.
You've definitely got to sit down for There Will Be Blood, because that movie hits the gas as soon as the opening, like the very first scene, and it doesn't stop. So like you can't be kind of doing something while it starts up. You've got to be in.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of one of those movies that when it starts, you think you've missed the title card. You're like, wait, do I need to back up? Hold on. Like it just pow. So, but that one's another showcase of like, wow.
Yeah, it's a good
I mean,
one.
he won the Oscar for it, and he decimated his competition.
And there was no one close.
Yeah, that's probably, if not the pinnacle of his performance. It's one of his best all-time character performances ever. Yeah.
I'm sharing our status because it was a bit of a crazy and wild week in the Disney world, in the Disney Plus world, specifically The Mandalorian.
Oof.
Because old Cara Dune, our good friend Gina Carano, fired from The Mandalorian.
She carried her Dune mouth in the wrong direction.
Right. Fired for freedom of speech.
No. Don't do that.
Well, no, I'm going to do it to a certain extent. Certainly to a certain extent. Because I think that it's interesting. I think it's interesting.
Okay.
Think of the optics of like, I mean, we go all around and around on liberal, conservative, all that kind of stuff. But the only thing better than being in Hollywood is being a woman in Hollywood, right now in terms
Right
of
now?
like, yeah, in terms of like, this is the best time that it's ever been to be a woman in Hollywood in terms of like executives and producers and stories that are actually being made. And so finally, not only do we have a character that, you know, I think Cara Dune's a fantastic character.
Yep.
Everybody unequivocally loves her as a character. She is such a huge part of the Mandalorian series and such a huge part of the franchise. And since Kathleen Kennedy and all of the Lucasfilm folks, which is like very woman-centric, maybe they couldn't have found a way around this problem, figure it out, work it out, you know, be like, hey, we're all girls trying to get along here, trying to make it work. Couldn't they have figured it out? Because it's not like it was that bad.
I didn't even. I saw the articles, and so I wasn't surprised when it happened. But
Yeah.
I honestly didn't read her tweets.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's the thing.
But-
it was just all the same stuff that everybody's uncle and, you know, people at Thanksgiving were saying. It's not like she was putting something out there that no one's ever heard before or thought or whatever. So I just found it interesting that was just like,
Well, she kept
you're done.
doing it. Wasn't that the thing? Because they already put kind
Right.
of pressure on her, and I think even Favreau may have stepped in. Again, this is essentially me reading headlines and not
Yeah,
reading the
yeah,
article.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Me too.
But yeah, it seemed like it's like she put out some stuff, and they went, "Hey, we're not a fan of that. You're part of the Disney brand, so you know you got to play by our rules if you want to play with us." And
Yeah.
she kept doing it, and so they were like, "All right."
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily it was also the context and the content of what she was saying too. We were like, even if she wasn't part of Disney, somebody would have been like, hey, maybe don't make that comparison in public
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Yeah.
What was
So
was the thing?
the reference that I heard, and it's going to be paraphrased, was, man, the Republicans have it worse than the Jews during the Holocaust.
That was the inference.
Uh
I'm
That's
not
enough.
saying that there's yeah, but there's no way that you could, I mean, unless like, and I really haven't heard anything from her, whether that's what she meant.
but there's a point. This is not her first appearance in public, right? She should know better.
Yeah.
And even if you think that or feel it or whatever, there's still a point where, yeah, you don't say that in public at all.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I should rephrase it. You don't
Well-
say that in public and not expect retaliation or
Yes.
or
You can
something to
say
come.
it.
You can say it all you want, but don't
But
be
you're
like,
not gonna
oh,
get your
people are
TV show."
mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's nothing. I mean, I guess maybe I've become desensitized because I've been away from Hollywood for so long, and I do live in a rural area, and
Oh, you
on
so you
a
hear that
weekly
shit all the
basis, I drive by a sign that says "Vote Trump 2020, make liberals cry again." Things like that, or just like, I guess I've just become desensitized to it, where I'm just like, well, yeah, they all think that they're victims to to bleeding hearts, and bleeding hearts all think Republicans are Nazis. So it's kind of like, it just, I guess I just never really thought that it was that weird. But I think the bigger thing is that I've never believed in something so strongly that I wanted to put my career at risk for it.
Sure.
Not to mention believe in something that really doesn't matter that much. Not to say that our political
Yeah.
beliefs don't matter, not to say that we can't feel strongly about certain rights that we have. But at the end of the day, like, is it really worth losing your career over wanting to say, like, make a statement, like basically say something that you could just like go find your most conservative friend, say it to her, and then just like get it out and then move on. You don't need to put it on Instagram or Twitter, especially when you've got such a
Tweeted
good
on
thing
my
going.
awesome phone in my bitchin',
Yeah.
you know, wherever
Yeah.
she lives, with
The
all
worst-
the money she has, she's successful, she's made it, she's famous, she's wealthy.
Yeah.
The worst
Enjoy
part
it,
is
man.
that, like,
It's like, yeah, woe are we.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the defense
Exactly.
is that the defense would be that she's not stupid and did, but like I at this point, there's been enough instances of people making extreme statements like that. Like, think about when Kathy Griffin held up the severed head of Donald Trump
Right.
and like her career. So it's not like this is the first time and people are like, what? That's going to happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads to be the point of like, listen, I know you could probably destroy me, Gina Carano, but you're stupid.
Yeah.
Just
For just
flat
tossing it out. Tossing
just-
it out.
You're just an idiot for the fact that you have that thought, and then B, you're like, what? This is totally normal and fine, and there's no repercussions from this, and I don't understand what's happening to me. No, you're an idiot. That's dumb.
Yeah, or the feeling of like, no, I must. I have to like it's a crusade, you know?
That's the
And
thing
I don't
that-
know if that's what her angle is.
That surprises me the most is like, why is that your crusade? Because I really think that there are so many.
Is she running for office we don't know about?
Yeah, there are just so many things to put your efforts and your energy and your positive energy and your sort of passion behind
Yeah.
beyond feeling like a victim because you're not a liberal in a liberal land. You know what I mean? Like, I could easily walk around feeling like no one thinks the way I think, you know, because I live in a really predominantly, conservative place, but we share a lot of the same values. And I don't even think about it because I feel like when you're giving, you know, especially because I'm in a position of service. You know, I have a client-facing business. All of my clients are of all different races, nationalities, you know, religions, all the things. So it doesn't even occur to me to think along those lines. So I find it fascinating that you can be. First of all, she's a woman who like broke into MMA, who broke into like the physical world in terms of like doing the American Gladiator stuff, worked her way up to where she's in Marvel movies and Disney shows.
Yeah.
And then it's just
speaking
like,
parts,
yeah, exactly. And
not
then
just
it's like,
the muscle in the background. Yeah.
now that the person I don't want to be president is president, I will flush that down the toilet. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why you would just flush it all down the toilet so that you can like, again, so you can just spout something that you could just easily do to your best friend and then you're kind of over it, you know?
Right.
That's what I don't get. The victimization that a person will put themselves under, self-victimization in order to prove a point. Her career is going to be zero now. Like, people don't understand. She doesn't understand. She's going to be making, you know, C-level like Christian movies now. Like, that's the best she's going to do.
People that are
going to
hire her, she's going to go, oh, this is what you make.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
yeah,
gonna be
no,
rough.
she's definitely not going to get. It's not going to be like the Travolta thing where she's going to come back in 20 years and turn around because
She's not that popular.
she's not popular. She's not the right person that's going to reinvent their career like a Travolta type thing, right?
Well, she's dabbled in acting and she's okay.
She's
but
not that good of an
not
actor
an
at all.
actor.
Yeah. Not at
I
all.
was
She's
trying to be
not.
nice
She's
and not say that, but yeah.
She is a fighter. She has a lot of
Yeah.
skills, and she did okay.
Yeah. She's pretty
Right,
good
she's
in Mandalorian. She's real bad in Deadpool.
Yeah.
She's real bad in that.
right.
Yeah.
But
But
there's a point where like being a tough guy, they use the good term guy loosely, being a tough character, the muscle
tough fella.
comes with a certain like box that you need to live inside of where everything's just really brute and gruff and direct and da 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 da. But yeah, in Mandalorian, it was the opportunity to be like, you can be more than this. Like that, being a shock trooper was your job,
Mhm.
but that job is now over. So what are you doing now? You know, it's a pseudo mercenary trying to survive type of thing. That's fine. It's a great character. You took over the sheriff role. It's fantastic. This is really, really great. But yeah, no, she's not gonna get circled back and thrown into like Sense and Sensibility or like that's a. She's never gonna work with Tom Hanks. Basically, is what I'm getting at. It's
Well,
not-
and that's the thing. Like, think about all the, because I'm obsessed with podcasts and I listen to a lot of stuff in the industry. Like, think about all the women who are running production companies now. We're talking about people like Reese Witherspoon and that
Sandra Bullock,
level of people. And trust me, they ain't Republicans. So, you know, that she's burned that bridge. So that one's gone. And then not to mention that basically the rest of the industry lives off of kind of what's going on in the streaming services. And when Disney Plus dumps you, you're not gonna be on HBO Max. You're not gonna be on Netflix. You know, so that's done now too.
Yeah,
So,
you've shown that you can't play and you can't be a team member. You're saying I won't play on your team.
It's the thing from Draft Day when Kevin Costner calls Chadwick Boseman is like, hang up your phone, stop, get off the internet, get off Twitter, because right now every GM knows you can't keep your mouth shut.
Right, yeah.
So she's basically done that. Every studio now knows that like you might be the exact character type we need, and we think you can pull this off, but I can't guarantee you're not going to do something stupid that reflects poorly on us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reason why at the beginning of every time there's commentary, it says the views and opinions expressed in this commentary are not the views and opinions of insert production company here.
Right.
So it's like now you can't say that, because if you're representing something, especially like the Disney brand, you can't be making statements like that and not expect fallout. So how's a company get around that? You don't get the job. And it's not like she's got this unique, she's not Dwayne Johnson, who has built this enormous empire to the fact where he is his own production.
You're a gun for hire, man.
And is making these decisions, right? She is still on the periphery fringe, who fit into a spot and did a good job, but is not going to be fitting into any more spots.
Yeah. It's all Katie Sackhoff now, because and that's the thing, like and we're not saying that you have to be like a good soldier, you know, we're not saying that you have to just go along with the team and constantly but the thing is that there are certain rules in everything, and
in every professional setting, there are things you can and cannot do.
You're contracted. And absolutely, those contracts say, hey, you can't go against this. You can't show a thing. You can't.
Yeah.
If you violate these things, you could be terminated.
And it's probably, I mean, and again, I want to keep on harping on this, but I just don't, like, so be really honest with you. One of like my, like, I guess I'll call it goal, but one of the things that drives me on a daily basis to continue to make all the things I make, and I make like some really, like, you know, boring stuff. I make really super fun stuff. Like, I'm all across the board right now in terms of what like I'm doing. But one of the things that really drives me is the possibility that maybe someday I'll get to direct an episode of The Mandalorian or of the Boba Fett or of the, you know, the
whatever
Cassian Andor, whatever the Star Wars thing that's happening. That's like one of the things that really drives me, is because I really want to get to that level where I could be a director of one of those types of, I mean, that's just like the goal, the dream. And I can't imagine being so far up my own ass that I would like think that I am bigger than the machine, or that I am too important to not, that I would like, and especially because as like this little kid, like a Star Wars kid, I mean, look, this is the stuff that we love, man. And like to jeopardize that for, I would prefer to feel like a victim rather than like be grateful for the position that I'm in. And that's the other thing too, is like I never think that I'm that good. And so whatever, I mean, and we can't speak for her, and I don't want to, but it just appears as if it's like, look what a badass I am. It's like, no. You are an actor, a cog in the wheel of a show that happened to be written and produced and directed by some of the most brilliant minds working right now. You got lucky as you know what, and you just flushed it down the toilet because you thought you were entitled to it. That's what happened. At least I think.
There's only
the opinions expressed here are not the opinions of other people.
There's only a few people and places and things that are irreplaceable. Yeah. You know, like, and they'll do it. Spider-Man has been recast 4 times.
Right.
So
they'll go out and get Ronda Rousey. They're not afraid. They'll get somebody else.
It's not even that. Like, I hate to say it, but like you could probably, especially in Hollywood, especially with the interest and peak that Hollywood has, the potential star power that is what drives people to work double shifts just to make a really bad casting call. you can find a Gina Carano replacement. There's at least 10 of them right now that are waiting tables, mixing drinks, working out at a gym, busting their butt. They're there. So you are not irreplaceable.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even to the effect of like Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian is absolutely replaceable because his face wasn't in the Mandalorian until this season.
Right.
You
Well,
can,
it was in the first season at the very end.
well, right, sorry, right, but what I'm getting at is that voice can be replaced.
Yeah.
And there are story mechanisms that would allow that to happen.
Right.
So it's like,
I mean, Luke Skywalker replaced his face, and it was the same actor.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's like the safety mechanism. You're right. It's being. I don't know how you get so far up on your own butt. Now, granted, people do say dumb things and make mistakes, but if it's correct that this is like the second or third time, that's on her, man.
Yeah.
Like you can say something dumb once and have someone be like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to rein that in and not make that public. And if they're like, I can do what I want, you know what? You can, and we'll do what we want.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of the bummer. Yeah.
You have the right to say whatever you want, and we have the right to fire you. Yeah, that's all it comes down to is yeah.
Yeah, and I guess not really knowing
Everything's
her,
interconnected.
not knowing her like actual perspective. Again, this is all conjecture and just, we're just going off of how it, excuse me, how it seems. But one of the reasons too I feel so strongly about it in one way is because having been, someone who worked for, 10 plus years in Hollywood and at one point wanted to be an actor as well. I've worked with some people who have 1 million times the talent that she does.
Yep.
Who have never had the opportunity she's had or never got through the gate the way that she did.
Right.
And so, there's so many people and people who I know, like who are friends of mine right now who have careers that are just almost there, man. They're just about to break through. That kind of an opportunity you would kill for. And so, just to throw it down the tubes for a perspective that doesn't matter enough, it just really doesn't. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one to swallow.
I think it's an interesting outlook. It's an interesting snapshot in society too, because the statement of, well, I should be able to say whatever I want, consequence free, is a new feeling. Like, you know what I mean? Like the whole idea of just being like, I'm just going to be a meme troll and say funny things on the internet is a new concept, is a millennial concept. I was at the gym the other day walking in. I didn't engage because A, not my place, B, not worth it. But as I'm walking up the stairs, these two guys behind me have this conversation about like, man, it's my First Amendment. I can say what I want and no one can stop me. Like, no, I mean, you're technically correct.
Really how it works.
But what you're saying does not necessarily, the First Amendment does not prevent consequence.
Right.
Like you can say, I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to say it, but you can say something as your First Amendment right, freedom of speech. But the freedom of speech just allows you to say it. That doesn't mean you're going to get, there's no consequence for what you've said and done.
Right.
In a similar phrase, there was a story that came out today, I think, of a waitress in New York City who was fired for refusing to get vaccinated for COVID. And she was like, this is a valid, this is a violation of my rights. And it was like, actually, no, New York is a right to hire, work for hire state. And if their public safety is part of their business and you refuse to be part of that public safety, you not getting vaccinated is the same as you not wearing like eye protection or ear protection in a factory. Like if this is what the job requires and you do not meet those or fill those requirements, you no longer have this job. It's not these are guaranteed things. This entitlement of like, well, I should have the choice not to get the vaccine and work here. Like, but you work with people, so no. You have to get vaccinated. That's the point. Like, it's not in my beliefs. Well, I don't believe you work here anymore. Then, like, as the owner of this business or whatever, if public safety is part of our business and you're endangering that public safety, get out.
rights
we
and
can no longer
beliefs.
work
Like,
together.
I love to poop, wipe my butt, and I refuse to wash my hands. And then I go and touch food.
And I
prepare
make
it.
sandwiches. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you don't work here anymore. That's not you can't do that.
But it's my right to not wipe my butt or wash my hands.
Yeah,
after
great.
I do such.
Then go do that
Cool.
somewhere else. But you're not doing it here.
But that's the thing. Your rights are not separated from consequences, and your rights and your beliefs are not the same things either. So that's the other thing. People put
Right,
their,
and
mix their
that's-
beliefs up with their rights, and that's not
the
that's
argument
not
I would
way
have
to go.
made
Other
with
people's
them.
rights come into play,
Yeah,
and your rights might infringe on their rights, and
exactly.
that's when it's a problem.
And also, I keep hearing people saying, you don't have to agree with what I'm saying, but you have to respect it. And I'm like, nope, also not true. I do not have to respect your opinion. I don't even really have to respect you. I can choose whether I want to listen to you or hear you. And yes, you have a right to your opinion, but I also don't have to respect it. Like that's another
the only
strange millennial
entitlement you
thing.
have.
Yeah.
The only entitlement is you can have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But your opinion does not mean that I have to respect it, listen to it, appreciate it, understand it. Those are my, if you want to talk about rights, those are my rights.
Right.
Like you might have, this is like softballing, you might have the opinion that strawberry jelly is the only jelly that goes on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I'd be like, you know what? Grape is superior.
How dare you?
But that's, like I said, it's a softball example.
We are
but that's what
done.
it is.
This
We're
podcast
through.
is over.
Like I'm allowed to enjoy grape jelly versus strawberry jelly, but I don't have to respect the fact that you like strawberry instead of grape. I can listen to it, but that does I don't have to agree with you or
Right.
respect you because you're a strawberry fan. I don't have to do anything.
You should, though. You really should. But it's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's
Where's Paula? She'll probably correct us on the rights.
well, maybe been a while since she was a civics teacher. So, but there's a lot of the idea of canceling is fascinating too. I think her statement on the way out the door was they can't cancel us if that whole thing. They can't cancel us if we don't let them. It's like, okay, enjoy your B movies, like, because that's what just happened to you, and it could have been prevented very, very, very easily.
Yeah, especially because this is a thing that's happening in real time. It's like it gets a little rougher when it's like something surfaces from many, many years ago that someone did when they were way younger, and maybe it's younger people are wanting to cancel them, and it's like, okay, young person, flash forward yourself about 20 years and see what you look back on and go, oh boy, that's what I was. That's what I used to say.
Yeah, those are the things I said.
See if that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
So
We've
it's
all
like
got
when
those.
it's those things, it's like there needs to be a few more steps involved before a canceling. I think when it's like, hey, this was a different time. People grew up in this different bubble. Doesn't mean it was right.
Right.
And thank goodness we're at a better place. However, it's like this tornado, that's like, and boom, you're going to get hit randomly for a thing that kind of everyone did or said, but it surfaced that you said it. So sorry, guy, 30 years later. And you're like,
Well, and that's tough too, because sometimes like your tweets or your Facebook posts and things like that pop up, and it's like
forever.
something I wrote like 5 years ago. I was like, oh, I don't like that. That's not who I am anymore. That's not my mindset anymore. What I truly believe.
And you don't have to go that far back in time for anyone to kind of feel that.
We can go to Tuesday and probably
Cancel some of your Tuesday thoughts.
I can go to the next thing I'm going to say right now.
right, and go.
Yep.
But
We're messy humans.
we sure are.
That's.
Well,
I feel bad because she was great as Cara Dune.
she was great. Everybody loved her.
It's like, it's the part that's disappointing is just that in general, it's such a bonehead mistake,
Yeah.
and something that, again, if it is a multiple occurrence type of thing, then to be like, no, I'm entitled to this job. Nope, You're really not.
You're
Yeah.
definitely
Not
not.
today.
Like, you're
And
entitled-
you're playing for the Mouse Ears team, and
Yeah,
if you
well,
don't
it's like-
get
Right.
You're entitled-
right, for sure.
what that means,
Yeah.
You're entitled to that opinion, and you can have it. You're not entitled to share it repercussion free.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's
So-
a really, really like strong point that repercussions are not something that, that you're devoid of just because you have an opinion. Because as they say, opinions are like, what holes.
Everyone's got them. No one wants to
that's
hear
the
from
thing.
them.
Yeah. Speaking of, hang on.
You gotta
Not
go
speaking
poo-poo?
of assholes. I don't know what. Speaking of nothing, that's not really the right transition. But
are you gonna pee? Because I could pee.
All right, I'll talk to the audience.
Okay, keep them entertained. I'll be right back.
So, hey, audience, how's it going? Oh, Matt's back. Never mind.
speaking of movies, look what I got. Oh,
Eric
yeah.
thought you were taking a bio, so he would
Oh
take a bio.
no, he can come back. I'll show him.
My God.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that beautiful? That's the new camera, folks.
That's one of those things that's like, there's so many buttons that I guarantee you don't use half of them.
Well, so here's the thing. You're very correct about that, and I'll show you why. So this whole portion right here is all the audio portion. And so I actually either capture my audio always off or separately, or I capture it in the recording device, where I record off.
I wonder why that was put
well.
on the camera then.
Well, because this particular camera is designed for like one shooter type stuff. It's a documentary, like kind of that was like the original design was to be a documentary camera. So they put XLR ports so that you can have audio running in. So if I was, I do all my own audio, but I just prefer to capture it typically off.
So when you hold that for the audience, what you're gonna do is extend your arm fully, and rest it on your forearm.
You rest it like this. Yep.
And you rest it like that in
Yeah.
the most precarious and unlevel position known to humankind.
Yeah.
And then lean forward so that all of the weight is pulling down on the camera, causing all of your muscles to spasm at once.
Yeah, and it's a good idea too that you might want to like shoot a few things where maybe everyone's laying on the ground, and so you hold the camera like this straight down over actors' heads, because that's not dangerous at all. God, I completely unfollowed her on Instagram. I was getting so sick of that nonsense. It was so dumb.
That stuff kills me because I think some of her posts were even to the point of like, you guys need to stop critiquing my how I do this because I'm doing it. I'm the one who's working. Like, whoa.
This is how I hold my
Easy.
camera. This is how I do it. Yeah, I was just like, look, I'm going to cancel you now. Look, Eric, I got a new camera.
It's crazy. Is it red?
It's the Sony FX9. It's their cinema camera. They have the Sony Venice, which is $70,000. That's their like Ari Alexa level one. This is the next step down, and it's not $69,000. Yeah, right. But it was time for me to make a big boy move, and so I made a big boy move. So still recording externally on the Ninja 5, this little guy right here. That's awesome. But I use it today for the first time. I just got it yesterday because, well, I won't complain about UPS on the show. We've already complained enough.
You're in the polar vortex.
But right.
Yeah, most of the country
is. It's just ridiculous. It was like I had to like have it redirected to the UPS store because like the guy just kept coming like too early, and I was just like, I'm just not here that early. Like, stop. So
Typical guys.
Typical guys always coming. Yeah, good job. And then I went to the UPS store and picked it up, and she was like, it was a giant box that said Adorama on it, so it's clearly mine because that's the camera company I bought it from. And she was like, "Is this it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's it." She goes, "Well, how do you know?" I was like, "Well, because I ordered something from Adorama, but that's
my name on it. Why don't you scan that giant barcode?
How many other people bought this $69,000 camera? Come on.
Did some other guy walk in here in a $3,000 suit and pick up a $70,000 But then And then she goes, that'll be $5. And I was just like, why? But okay, like, here's your $5 for a pickup fee.
A pickup fee?
Well, yeah. So I had to like, yeah, I was like, all right, like, times are tough, I guess. Well,
You could probably get that refunded.
get your $5. Here you go.
It's not how the
They'll
UPS
be like,
store
well,
works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
But-
tried to deliver 8 times, so that was
Yeah, exactly.
40 cents each.
It was the kind of store though too, where there was like 2 girls working it, and you know, the one girl, she had the mask underneath the nose, and then the other girl, her mask was hanging from her ear as she was helping a couple with no
one
masks
side.
on. So I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna get the out of here as fast as possible.
Here's your $5 COVID dollars.
Yeah. So I just wanted to show off my little baby. Oh, this is kind of fun. I'll show you this too. So this is the Polar Pro matte box for it. You know, kind of helps reduce flares and all that kind of stuff. I don't need it for the filters because the camera itself has its own built-in filters, which is really super cool. Oh, yes. So what I bought for this was I bought a mist filter, which basically is like a little bit of a diffusion. So it's kind of hard to see, but it's just like,
I got it. Yeah,
see how it kind of diffuses it just a little bit. So it makes your lights like a little less digital, a little softer. And then there's also a filter in here that's probably, let's see if you can even tell from the reflection. Oh, maybe. Nope, probably not. It's got these little blue lines, so it creates an anamorphic flare in your thing without it being an anamorphic lens. I'll show you some footage.
The bokeh or
No, so like, you know, like when like in an anamorphic movie, if like a headlight hits the lens and you get that blue streak across, that's what it is. So it creates like the streaks, which is super cool. So it's a little Abramsy, but I like it a lot. It's super cool.
That's going to be an interesting thing for you to tinker with, of like the natural creation of that and then the artificial creation due to the lens. I wonder if there's going to be a weird, like, you're going to have to make a checklist of like, what are the conditions right now? This one. Okay. I can't.
Well,
use this thing
it's
'cause
more like where I was shooting today, I was shooting in a garage where these guys were welding.
Oh, so semi-controlled. Yeah.
So I was making sure that in my shot, I would frame one of the lights just in like the top corner, so I would get that streak in the top. But everything else was cool because when you go Abrams with it, and it's just like there's like 7 flares going off at one time, it gets to be a lot. It's a lot to mess with. So yeah. But this is a beast. It's a lot of buttons that I need to learn and figure out how and what to do with it, but pretty excited. So
just shoot some little projects and be willing to fail, basically.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it was very close. I was very close to getting a red though. But the big thing that put me over on the Sony, I mean, I love this camera. I've used it a couple times. I've rented it. It's amazing. But the big thing was just because I love the Sony lenses so much, and I'm already heavily invested in them. And you know, and they ain't cheap. And reds are only Canon mount, which is super obnoxious. That you either do Canon mount or PL. PL would be fine, but your cheapest PL lens is like $25,000. So it's like that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, so worked out. So you guys should come out. Let's make some art. It'll be fun.
I had a shower thought, which are fun. So I've talked to you a long time ago about this idea I've had about the time travel movie.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do, my shower thought was, I need to get in contact with M. Night Shyamalan's people and figure out the best way to legally protect myself and him, but also to have this thing get made. Just so like what is the minimum I can do to pitch you and sell you this idea and have you make it? Because I think it's right up M. Night's alley, but not have him just be like, that's a cool idea, and then make it and I get nothing from it.
Well, you make him sign in what do you call it?
Collaboration agreement?
Non-disclosure.
Well, yeah, an NDA and then a collaboration
NDA
agreement,
first, and then that way he looks at it and
say you get it cut or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Even if you don't want much money up front. But
yeah.
I'd sell it to him. I just want it made, but I know I don't have the current faculties to see it end to end, like all the way through.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my shower thought of like, how do I call M Night?
Yeah, you
Do I
just-
call him Mr.
Just
Shyamalan?
do it, man. Yeah, you just do it. I'm gonna go put this
was
back on its tripod. I'll be right back.
Okay.
My stupid movie idea. I'll wait till Matt's back.
Yeah. Do you
Here's for my Star Wars thing. I'm making a Muppet.
is that going to conflict with your like green screen stuff? Or is that on purpose?
No, this is the project that's zero. It's all practical.
Oh,
And
okay.
This is a hologram of
Oh, that's right.
my
That's right.
Jedi
That's right.
boss.
Nice.
So yeah.
That is awesome, dude.
So he's coming along. He's getting some clothes. He needs some hair. He needs highlights and shadows. But
Who's that
That's
guy?
awesome.
this is Master Ugu Magoogie.
He's
For my
cute.
Star Wars thing. When I was like, oh, because I have a part where I talk to a hologram of my boss.
Yes.
And I was like, it's not fun just having a toy, so I'm going to make a Muppet.
Oh, it's awesome.
Got a little,
That is
got a little
insane,
Muppety
dude.
guy that I'll make a cloak for him, and then finish out the hair, highlight shadows, and probably try and shoot through blinds maybe, and like move the blinds up and down, something to get that linear lighting effect on holograms. We'll see.
So you want to make it like do it practically? You don't want to. Yeah.
Everything.
That's cool.
That's my whole thing with that project. Is
Yeah.
everything has to be practical, which means it'll never get done, but it's a fun challenge.
But you did
That's
it.
cool.
Yeah, it's coming.
God, that is sick, dude.
Is that his actual name?
Yeah, I had a different name, and I was like, it's not stupid enough.
Yeah.
So
How
I
do you
came up with-
get the hand? You got to put your hand up there, or how does he talk?
Well, I kind of made him just a little too small, so I was like, that's not going to work. So this will be hidden, this wire, but it's just essentially a wire.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I think I'm going to have a little chin beard on him.
Oh,
To
nice.
mask it?
Yeah, put a little beard. That's perfect. Yeah.
And I'll just shoot at the right angle because he'll kind of be looking up because it's this little, you know, hologram looking up.
Is he stuffed, or how did you make the head? Is it?
It's out of a foam, and then I covered it with felt.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just
So good.
it's one of the yak face dudes that
Yeah.
like you don't really hardly ever see.
That's great. I love it.
So and then made some little clothes on him.
So freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
Can you give him a lightsaber?
No, he doesn't do anything. He just kind of complains, like, "What are you doing?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, ugh, why are you bugging me? Essentially,
Yeah. That's great.
that's me trying to get out of my mission, and he's like giving it to me. So
Yeah.
that's
I
that
love it.
scene. So it should be funny, hopefully. Oh yeah, my stupid movie idea I had maybe last week was doing the whole like flashback thing with a movie, but it's like there's a character, and it's like 3 days before, and some stuff happens, and then there's another flashback within that flashback, and it just keeps flashing back until the person's literally like a baby being born, and then it jumps all the way forward, and whatever the plot was, we're at the end of the movie, and the person and the movie ends.
You
The
never get
person-
caught up.
or the short, whatever the short is.
Yeah.
It's like everything just got resolved, and we missed it because we were trapped in flashbacks. So it's just like a giant troll of an idea.
Yeah. You're getting
to screw with
rickrolled
the
by your own
audience.
movie.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that could be a funny short.
That one's
like
yeah, that would be
10,
fun.
15
Be
minute
easy.
short.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like, oh, it's just gonna keep flashing back.
Is that the thing where,
now
like,
she's 9?
He
Oh.
touches something and then it causes like a sense memory and you keep going back.
Yeah.
And then he walks in and smells muffins and
Right, like the Lost had be. Yeah.
We've never talked about your that glass that you drink out of.
Oh.
Is that like the old Arby's avalanche glass?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
What year is that
inaugural
from?
season.
Managed to hold on to
Like 96?
2 or 3.
Yeah.
No, I think this was like early 2000. maybe.
Okay.
Maybe this was when Paul Correa was on the team for a hot minute. I
Okay.
think
Oh wow.
Teabag Salami. Teabag Salami was,
I remember
on it.
T-Bag Salami. He was great.
Yeah. Steven Reinprecht. I'd forgotten about him.
Oh,
but
yeah.
number 21, Peter Forsberg.
Yeah.
Right there. Ba-boom.
The Petey Forest.
Oh, Adam Footer.
Nice. Is there
Yep.
a date on it? Because usually
Probably
those
the bottom.
Arby's glasses, they always put like a date on it, which I think is hilarious.
But yeah, my phone's dead. If someone looks up the year Paul
Yeah.
Correa played with the Avalanche, I'm pretty sure it was that year.
That's great. What's the? As I came across the Return of the Jedi glasses. Not Arby's though. Maybe Burger King. Yeah, Burger King. That
Probably.
my parents had recently, and those were 1982 or whatever that year was. Some good ones, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the one that I remember distinctly as a kid was the Jabba the Hutt. It had Jabba and Princess Leia and Slush's Crumb. Yeah, all the way around. Yeah, so amazing. Like, I love those things.
Yeah, kind of multicolored, but they couldn't do too many colors because it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'd be like a
Free.
4-pass.
Yeah, they're
Call
like
it a day.
brown, dark brown, and like light blue, and then you're in good shape. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you get it. You get the rest.
yeah. What was the name of the guy? Paul Correa. How do you spell his name?
Kariya.
Look at you. I'm good
Wow.
like that. Is that like your if you were in a Shane Black movie, you're the guy that remembers how to spell everyone's
No,
last name?
I had a flashback the other day of, I think it was one of you two actually that called me the asshole who knew or thought he knew everything.
Nice. Who called you that?
It was either
Look,
you.
I'm looking at you, Eric. Not gonna
it was
confirm
either
but-
it was either you, Eric, Rocket Man, or Joel. At one point, I think you guys got just tired of my shit and were like, "Why are you
Oh,
always
that's
the asshole that thinks they know everything?" Like, sorry.
Well, actually, did you answer
yeah.
back with?
Actually, it's because I have a mild sociopathic disorder, which got.
Oh,
All right, Eric, stop playing my video games and leave my house. I have to go to bed. Yeah, that's probably
Get out.
the next thing that happened.
No, I couldn't get mad because you guys aren't wrong.
Boy,
I don't
as long as you know,
that doesn't feel like me.
No,
At
it was
least years ago. It wouldn't have felt like me. Maybe Joel.
I think it was not meant in a mean
Right,
way. I
it's a
think it was just
loving,
somebody
funny
was
way.
in like an observational setting.
That's
And
really
I-
funny.
See Joel saying a one-off though, like that. Yeah.
Right. And like I couldn't get mad at it because it's not entirely wrong. It's like one of my favorite I have this great memory from college. It was such like a I love when things happen and they're so correct that I can't get mad at them. So I was in the cafeteria and I was giving somebody a really hard time for some reason. And I got so full of myself. I was just on a roll. Everyone was just like, oh, and it was to a girl. And she grabbed her giant cup of water and threw it into my face and lap. And I was like, it shocked me. It surprised me, but I was like, yeah, no, I deserve that.
Yeah, that's what happens to me
Like,
now.
Yep, nope, yeah, you're not wrong here. I'm not mad.
Huh?
And she's like, "Are you done?" Like and I was just like, it was one of those things where like I'm sorry, that train was going down the tracks and I couldn't stop it.
Way down the
What do
station.
you want me to do? Yeah.
I'm really sorry about that. You like, and this response is correct. So,
That's funny.
So my bad. I've had those moments, unfortunately. I get caught in my own. My train gets a little ahead of itself from time to time.
But you've been married for a while, so something's working.
Well, you know, it's holding your family hostage in the Bavarian Alps is
Yeah.
easy.
Is this? Are you guys having the anchor baby, so she can't leave now?
No. Yeah.
The old anchor baby.
Mm.
Yeah.
So watched News of the World
Oh,
this week, which is a
yes.
new Tom Hanks film.
Did you make it
And
through? Was it snoozy?
I made it through, but I was. It's a trend I'm noticing with Western films that I don't like, where it's
They're westerns.
well. See, the thing is, I don't mind a Western, but it's one of those. It's Tom Hanks, and it was produced by Playtone, which means Tom Hanks went out, found this script, was like, yes, I'm going to put my money behind it, and then it's like, and I'm going to cast myself as the lead. Like, okay, cool. but it's just
Big
it's
shock.
this like it's
Yeah.
this ultra slow, nonsensical story that has cliche high points and just these flat low points to the point where like, so the whole gist of the movie is he is a Southern captain. This is post Civil War in Texas. So like the Union has won. He's out of a job. And so his job is to go from city to city and he reads the news because he goes to like, he'd go to like Fort Morgan and read the news kind of thing. So he goes in Texas and he travels around and he reads the news. On this travel, he comes across this overturned carriage and it's got a young girl in it who doesn't speak English. She speaks Kiowa Indian. And
I was hoping she was like Nell.
yeah, no, not a wild, I mean, kind of a wildling.
Making up
She was
crap.
raised by
But-
wolves.
So
That's great.
he finds her and then gets her paperwork that says that she was rescued from a tribe and is to be returned home to somewhere in Texas. And in this process, this Union patrol comes up on him and he has to tell them like, I'm Captain so-and-so, basically like, yes, I know I fought for the South, but you won, congratulations. They're like, great, take her to this place, figure it out. And then so he goes there and then the Union station chief down there is like, well, take her or don't. Like the guy who deals with this is going to be here in 3 months. So what do you want? Like, this is the wild, wild west. Like stuff doesn't move in an instant.
Mhm.
So then he like kind of dumps her off on a family who was presumably one of his soldiers. And so like, you'll take care of her. Right. And then he gets a change of conscience, is like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So he decides to take her home. And then, just boring standard nonsense happens. Standard travel movie stuff happens, right? I mean, you could probably already tell me what you think happens. And then it like ends and you're just like, well,
Do
that
they
was
go to the
thing.
Sonic drive-through?
Yeah.
Drive up.
So
And
it was
she's
just, it
really
was,
excited by the little turd ice that are in the Sonic drinks.
yeah, it was just super like uninteresting
Yeah.
of what happened. And it was disappointing because it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I wanted from a Western movie, but I've noticed it recently. Like a lot of Western movies are just really slow and
Want
pointless.
something
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Like 310 to Yuma was like
A
that
reason.
one. That was my first introduction to like movie I was excited about that wasn't
Yeah.
exciting.
Well,
You're
yeah, there's
"Oh,
like there's
that's
310 to
boring."
Yuma. There's the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Even like the redo of True Grit was kind of like, all
Yeah.
right. Like it's just like I'm not asking for like Young Guns, which was all about like Western. I'm not asking for like a Tombstone type of thing, but at least have something interesting occur.
Yeah.
But
Don't
if
don't make Maverick the best Western to come out the last 20 years.
Oh,
which is
God,
a
I
really
forgot
fun
about
movie.
Maverick, right.
Well,
I
so,
would
like,
put
don't
Hell
make
or
that.
High Water in the Western category. And if you do that, then that's the best one probably so far because something actually happens.
That's
and it's
fair.
pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's a good. That's a good.
I mean,
movie
it takes
too.
place now, but it was.
Yeah,
it was a
I
good
mean,
one.
it's westerns. Good westerns became
Yeah,
that, or
yeah.
what's the Coen Brothers movie?
Oh yeah, No Country for Old Men.
The Wile E. Coyote one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
that's
look at
good
that
stuff.
as a Wile E. Coyote.
And there was well Django, I guess I would consider a western. That was
Would
pretty-
you?
Yeah.
Watch that.
Well, yeah. it
Would
takes-
you? No.
Well,
would-
it's a
would you
southern. It's a southern.
yeah, that's not a
Yeah.
Western.
No, I would say it's a
southern.
western because there's a lot of there's gunslinging and cow pokes and all that kind of stuff. I put it in the western category.
What's
I
Gangs of
think-
New York? The Wild East.
Right? Yeah, pretty much. Because it's
crazy
like
5 points.
It's sort of more like Gone with the Wind, I guess. But yeah, what do you call that kind of a movie?
Antebellum.
That's like a
Yeah.
Southern Civil
Yeah.
War era type stuff.
Remember Lady Antebellum? Are they a
band?
thing still?
Probably.
They changed their name, but then they totally changed their name to something that already existed by a black artist.
Oh no.
I think they changed it to just Lady or something, and people were like,
That's a
guess
thing.
what?
They changed it from Lady Antebellum to
Or
Rihanna.
Lady A.
That didn't work.
I think it was something like,
Let me see here.
Whoops.
Lady
and the Dixie Chicks
Ante-
changed theirs to the Chixie Dicks.
Chixie Dicks. Yeah, they changed it to Lady A.
Right.
Why? What's wrong with antebellum? Is that a
I think
bad word?
antebellum carries
Because it was
carries some
the whole-
connotation.
Antebellum South. Oh yeah. Got you. Slavery and all that good stuff.
Oh, right.
All that
Slavery,
good stuff.
in case you forgot.
But then they changed to Lady A. There already had to be a Lady A. No.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they
then-
were like, we're changing it to Beyonce. Like, well, you can't because
Like, are you sure?
there's already one of those.
Yeah.
And then I watched that and I was disappointed. I paid $20 on Amazon to watch that.
Woof.
Well, I mean, that's just what the Amazon prices
Yeah,
are right now.
yeah.
Especially, I mean, you think with like
and
Tom
because-
Hanks and
Yeah,
Mhm.
movies
like-
have to make money.
yeah, I get it. And then
What you reaching for, Eric?
Fixing my
Just
iron
want to
shelves.
touch them or what?
There was a gap, so now I'm fixing.
Oh,
it,
nice.
Binding the gap.
Yeah, we
and
can't
then we
tell
watched
from here.
The Mummy, which I haven't seen in a while. The Brendan
OG?
Fraser,
One.
the original Mummy.
Wow, nice.
Not that
Um,
Tom Cruise one that no one.
Not the Tom Cruise one. No. Surprisingly, that movie,
Starring the girl from Star Trek.
I think it was a Stephen Sommers film,
And he did the first one.
but it's
No, Chris Columbus did it.
Dark.
Never mind.
it's
Oh,
got
there's
some
definitely some.
dark moments in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the original Mummy, there's some like really jacked up stuff that you're just like,
Like
oof,
the organ taking, and yeah. all that.
yeah,
Oh, you mean the original one?
yeah, that's what
Oh,
I'm talking
yeah.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Brendan Fraser. Well, yeah, but there's like the Emotep stuff. There's even just like the concept of like the scarab beetles
Yeah.
and like the guy who, I mean, you can look past it because the CG graphics are really bad. But the guy gets one that like goes into him and like bores into his skull. And like, oh my god. Yeah.
That was right on that that cusp of CGI being really good. It was like
Right, where they're like,
'cause,
we could do it-
Jurassic Park did amazing CGI, and then everybody else either sucked at it or was kind of good at it for like the next like 8 years. And so,
Well,
and that's where the Mummy was. It was like right on the cusp of it being really good.
And directors went, "Oh, I can do whatever. Well, let's have a thing do this." It's like, well, what could that happen? No,
Yeah.
but we can make it happen. It's like then it's
Right.
not going to work.
Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
especially in the Mummy, like the stuff where there's like the wall of sand and his face is projected in the wall of sand. That's like wow. But then the scene, like I said, with the scarab that's like going through his body is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
because you're just
it's
like, I can't
so
buy
bad.
that skin is that thin. You know, it's just,
Right. Yeah.
Right.
When you use CGI, it still has to feel
Well, yeah,
plausible,
yeah,
even
it
if
like
it isn't.
crawls up his
Yeah.
face, and you're like, wait a minute, that's sticking out that far. That's
Right.
in his mouth. I'm sorry. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's not how this works.
Yeah. Or it's like, what was that? Terminator 3 movie has this scene. I love the chase actually, where it's like the big crane and the female Terminator's controlling all these like first responder cars, and they're all chasing down the little Datsun that Claire Danes.
Claire
Is it?
Danes.
Yeah, hey.
There we go. It finally came back.
It's Kate Winslet.
Um,
Sorry.
But like the Terminator, I think it's where there's like a fire engine, and it gets flipped, or no, the crane gets flipped. An anchor gets dropped in like a manhole.
Yeah, the ball gets
And the tension hits, and it like crunches, and it flips over. And while it's flipping over, for no good reason, not just the tires, but just wheels are like flying off of it.
Uh-huh.
Because I guess axles broke.
Because
and
you
so then,
can.
like, yeah, it's just like extra. And the artists are going, well, it'll make it seem more real if stuff's flying off of it.
Mhm.
But you're watching, going, why are those things that are welded on flying off?
You're right.
yeah. Those aren't the loose parts of this machine. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I don't think I watched anything other than Gangs of New York this week. I mean, I watched a lot of cryptocurrency videos, but besides that, yeah.
Wow, you're in on that.
I'm in, man.
Fascinating.
I'm in. Absolutely. Portfolio's up $1,000. So not mad at it. It's like, it's going good. Yeah, definitely. But there's a lot in the space. I'm pretty
Cost
excited.
me 10.
Yeah.
But I got that great.
And I'm selling some of the sports cards too that I bought, this spring. I sold what was it? Oh, Michael Jordan. No, not Michael Jordan. I'd be rich. Mike Tyson. It was a 1988 Mike Tyson card. back in the day where boxers didn't have cards, but Panini in Italy made these books that were sticker books. So you get the sticker card and then you put the stickers in the thing. But a lot of people saved the stickers.
They didn't unsticker them.
They didn't unsticker them. But some people have surgically removed the card from the book and then had it graded. And so I had one that was graded, and I bought it in like April for like $600 and sold it for $900. So, you know, that wasn't terrible turnover. So got a couple things like that just like, just kind of try to sell some of the stuff and such. So.
Are you gonna down the road be like, there's some story, I think David Spade tells it on the Conan O'Brien podcast. I've heard it before too, where he's like, oh, you ever texted with Norm? It's like one day Norm was like, texting me, hey, do you like money? And that's all it was. And so David Spade's like, yeah, sure, I like money. And he's like, then hours go by, and then it's like, would you like to have tons of money? Yeah, sure. And then, would you like to walk into a car dealership and pick out whatever car you like and be able to buy it? Yeah, Norm, I would love to do that. Nothing for a while, and then bet the under on the Knicks on the Sunday night game. You know? It's like, oh, you have an addiction. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I want to be texting you. Well, I haven't texted you guys anything about crypto yet. Although I feel like I'm holding back info because I really want to, because you guys could be making some money right now.
You've got a
on
camera.
This stuff. Yeah, I did.
And you can do an infomercial.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
The nugget of it. Is
what we're going to do is we're going to start here, and I'm going to tell 3 of my friends, and then you tell 3 of your friends.
Yeah.
And
And
all
we
they do
all
is have
get
to
a
give
cut
you
of it.
5% up, and just like you just pass it back up.
Exactly. What's the problem? Yeah.
Everyone wins. Everybody wins.
So why are you so skeptical about crypto, Nico? Like, it seems like something that'd be right up your alley.
Because
I know we kind of already talked about it.
Well,
I feel like I asked this exact question to you
value.
last week, but
but
Who
it's
says it has value? Yeah.
there's no intrinsic value behind the nature of the value of the currency. 2, if 10 people in the right position get together, they can either inflate it or crash it. And then everyone's boned because there's nothing to back it. It washes.
well, then that's not unlike the stock market or the gold standard or whatever else.
Yes and no. I mean,
Now, I think that comes a little bit. Now, don't take this the wrong way. This comes from a little bit of a lack of understanding of what blockchain really is. Bitcoin, I can go with you on that one because Bitcoin is just Bitcoin. Like, it's a thing that it's like gold, but it's digital gold. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I am invested in is something called Ethereum and things that are on like this Ethereum blockchain. And essentially how that one works is it's a means by which people can trade goods. And the Ethereum is the token that exists on this blockchain that is used as the exchange to get these things done. So say I bought a piece of art from you, a digital piece of art from you, and I buy it on Ethereum. In order for me to give you the money, I have to send it to you digitally. But in order for that money to get from me to you, somebody in the blockchain has to solve the code
Algorithm.
or the algorithm to make it get to you. And so that person gets a little chunk of the pie that gets to you. So it's kind of like a credit card processing fee or whatever. But what's cool about blockchain, what's cool about like stuff like these digital transactions is you can't, as of now, you can't hack the blockchain in terms of the records exist kind of like for all time. So it creates a really interesting sort of like history of transactions.
it's a chain of ownership.
Yeah, chain of ownership. Exactly. That's really, really interesting. It's fascinating to me.
Well, it's one of those things too, where it's the strength of blockchain is it's maybe be very careful. It's fraud proof, which is not the correct statement.
Right now it is.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the most secure way to transfer funds without the potential for laundering and fraud. So when you give somebody $100, you know they're going to get $100. It's that kind of thing. Whereas like you've got counterfeiting with currency, you've got electronic bank fraud where somebody's like, oh, I'll send you a check, and then it like the whole Catch Me If You Can Frank Abagnale stuff where he found out that if he writes a check in New York City that uses a California processing number, by the time he writes it, the bank in New York can't cash it. They have to send it to California to be cashed, but he already has the money. So by the time that they know that it's fraudulent, he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's that kind of thing. It prevents that. There's no like, well, where did this come from? Oh, I know who it came from, and you can't fake who it came from.
Yeah.
So
and it's
that kind of
interesting.
stuff is valid to invest in because that is an upcoming trend.
And that's what I'm investing in. I'm not in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And the
Bitcoin
reason that I'm not
is-
in Bitcoin, for one, is because it's just like bonkers expensive in terms of like where it's at. Like when I first got interested in crypto, it was already 37,000. It's at 52,000 per Bitcoin right now. I'm in on the communication aspect of it. That's what fascinates me. So that's why I'm so heavy on Ethereum.
Sure.
And a couple others. There's one called CeeLo, which is really interesting. It's basically, think of it as it's Venmo essentially, but it's Venmo for like developing countries in the sense that if a mom in Mexico wants to send money to her grandma in Guatemala, it bypasses the middleman in the sense that like all the fees and all that crazy stuff, and she can buy CeeLo and send it to mom. Mom gets the CeeLo, then she changes the CeeLo into whatever her dollar is.
Okay.
Right. But it's on blockchain, so it's also a direct transaction that also has a history to it that is traceable.
This is the other reason why I am leery about crypto is because right now that is not a nationally regulated currency. What you basically just described is
But dollars are, or whatever, money is
But a
in the
CeeLo, a bank could decide we don't recognize this as something. We're not going to transfer that thing.
and
Your
also
wampum into real.
Oh, I see what you
and
mean.
also
yeah.
and also
gotcha.
what you're getting is
Your
it's
wampum.
avoiding international regulation
Yes.
where like so Brexit, I know this is a tangent, but like a lot of online goods providers like sweatshirts, t-shirts and stuff like that are in the United States cannot send to Europe right now or to England or whatever because Brexit has jacked with international trade rates. And the fact that like trying to send something to Ireland right now is going to cost 5 times the amount of the base good itself. So these companies like Etsy, like there's like, I'm not going to send you a sweatshirt because I can't charge you $400 for a $40 sweatshirt, but that's what it's going to cost. So these blockchain systems are a way to kind of circumvent that thing, which is why I'm only leery on it, because it's like, this is a good thing until the international banking community says like, wait, we're losing how much money doing what because of how? Nope.
Yeah, see,
And they're going to jump in on it and they're going to crush it.
I think the opposite.
Okay.
because
It's fair.
MasterCard.
I don't have a crystal ball.
Right. But we've got big institutional money coming into play.
Yeah.
And the reason is like MasterCard is going to begin accepting Bitcoin as payment. So that means that there's opportunity that banks are seeing that is truly there. And it makes a lot of sense because when you're trading on, it doesn't matter if it's a dollar or a Bitcoin, if it has value, it has value. It's like when you get a refund on Amazon, but they're like, well, but we're not going to refund you dollars. We're going to refund Amazon stuff. Well, you're still paying with Amazon dollars because it has value on that platform because you're going to spend it anyways.
The issue with when I heard that MasterCard was going to accept Bitcoin, we just rewatched the movie The Big Short about the housing crisis. And one of the major, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, So this is the 10,000 foot, Reader's Digest condensed version. What started to happen at the end of The Big Short and why it almost didn't happen is because when banks realized that they were about to lose billions of dollars, they started buying against their own failure as well. So like, and this is what happened with the Steve Carell group, is that he was a hedge fund, but underneath like Wells Fargo or something like that. So basically when he started buying into this short, Wells Fargo, if that was the bank, Bank X, when Bank X realized that he was correct and not full of himself, they started doing what he was doing, to the point where the funds that he was shorting were basically his own bank account. Like he was shorting the money that he was using to create the short was his own money in return. So even if he was to capitalize on the short, he would basically be taking stuff out of his right hand and putting it in his left hand and being like, I'm rich now. Like, you're not. So that's another thing that makes me concerned about, is that MasterCard is like, listen, this Bitcoin thing is unregulated. We know it is. We're going to accept the payments. We're going to try to buy it. It's not
unregulated, though. It's not unregulated.
But what I'm getting at, like the cost is still like, could be whatever. But I think they're covering short losses or getting set up to cover short losses if in the case that Bitcoin does fail or goes from $52,000 a coin down to $10 a coin, like when it started, which I don't think it will do that, but I'm getting at, like, I think they're trying to leverage the position, which is then somebody's going to see like, oh, well, if MasterCard's doing that, well, I'm Chase, I'm going to get in on MasterCard's position. And then they're going to create this short cycle again that at some point it
was definitely possible.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying, but when it drops, it's going to collapse.
Your skepticism
That's
is
fair.
what drives me, and I love it because
That's
I
fine.
think it's fascinating because I like the more due diligence I do on blockchain in general, and especially like the Ethereum blockchain and other like alternate blockchains other than Bitcoin, it is 1,000,000% where we're going, and it's going to be. It's going to be how we do all the transactions. And so just owning a piece of that in Ethereum, especially in the Ethereum space, is like without a doubt the place to be. And it's just really just kind of like, it's sort of like owning real estate in a way, because if you're going to be able to do a lot more when the blockchain, which is kind of like, Internet 3.0, when that's running, you'll be very wealthy in that space because you have the ability to build businesses and do the things that you want to do on those blockchains and stuff like that. It's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I think the hard part now is also too, is that the fact that it is still kind of like little green grass where like major corporations aren't in it yet. So you're benefiting from inexperience. Not you, I meant like the inexperience of it, but like once BHDs and stuff get in behind this stuff, it's going to be kind of like I think we talked about this a long time ago, but the movie The Founder about McDonald's and why it was so brilliant is because a financial person got in and talked to him and said, like, listen, franchising is a good idea, but you're doing it wrong. You need to own the land that you put McDonald's on, so that when you franchise to the owner, not only do you collect franchise, you also collect lease or rent from that land. If you don't own the land that your franchise is on,
property tax,
you're going to get smashed. So that's why there's literally the McDonald's real estate company exists, because somebody was smart and was like, you're going to lose on this. So he got in advance, and it's like a weird skeptical double dip, but it's still valid. But it's brilliant. It's technically brilliant. So I'm also skeptical to the point where I also know that like I'm not in a position to give it the full force effort required to be advantageous.
Right.
Like it's not like one of those things like, I've got $5, put me in the stock market.
Yeah.
That's not what you do in this situation. This is I've got 20 grand and I can go flex some muscle. And because that's how math works.
I'm
You know, it's
going
like,
in on well, I mean, obviously nothing's a sure thing. I'm going in on the things that I feel like are the infrastructure, and so it's just 2 coins. I mean, there's a couple things that I got a little bit in, but I tried playing the game, so I'm not a like I'm a I hate gambling. I don't gamble. I don't like. I just hate all that stuff. So I tried. I put in a few bucks into some things that were like 50 cents to like $1.50 to see if like over time they would like double, and I would double my money. I just got super impatient about that, and I just don't have the patience really for that kind of stuff. So I've just put everything into the bucket that I believe in, and I think that's the way to go with it. Is put it in the bucket you believe in and see what happens with it there. So, and it's not like I have like expendable, like not like it's not like it's fun money. It's like instead, and this is the terrible thing to say, instead of like putting it all into my 401k today, I decided to take it and try it in blockchain, and then taking the profit essentially, and putting that back into the not 401k. I've got the IRA now, but
right. Well, I
doing
mean,
it that
thing,
way.
Another
So
thing you might
it's
want to look at
truly
doing,
investing.
right? Another thing you might want to look at doing is like, let's say your initial investment was $1,000. Let's just go really simple numbers, right? Initial investment of $1,000. To the point when you have $2,000, you pull your 1,000 out, so that you are only working with profit.
Yeah.
You take that 1,000, you put it somewhere safe, you put it somewhere else, but you should never be in a position where your investment is dipping into the initial principal. If you can ever get to the point where your initial principal has doubled, where you could pull it out, and then you are literally working on interest profit, that's where you want to be. That's like the ideal nailed it situation. There's the stock market thing is so scary in general, and how dangerous it can be. There's a stock that there was a company I worked for that went public, and their stock price was, we'll call it X. Right now it's 8X. So at the time I should have been like, man, if I had $1,000, do this, because I know it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't regret it. I'm not mad, because it easily could have gone the other way.
Yeah,
And then it's like, what could I have done with that $1,000?
Well, after all the Wall Street stuff, after the Wall Street bets stuff with the GameStop, I started following that on Reddit, and I don't do Reddit really, but so that's like the two is like the crypto and the Wall Street bets, and it's fascinating because it's people are literally putting up their entire fortunes onto these things that they chat about, and it's crazy town.
That Wall Street bets thing is really scary, because it sounds a lot like, I'm going to compare it to a lot of movies because that's the world I live in. It sounds like The Boiler Room, where The Boiler Room was a nice little movie from the 90s, had like Vin Diesel, Giovanni Ribisi, and the guy from That Thing You Do. But it's basically
also Giovanni Ribisi.
Yes. Also,
Yeah.
No, the guy who plays the drummer. But anyway, The Boiler Room was
fake
basically
Tom Cruise. Or fake Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Yes, was a hedge fund management system where they were posting up fake companies, getting people to invest all of this money into it. They were reaping the FCC bonuses and rewards for this investment stuff, and then they would fold the company. So they would, but it was to the point where like somebody would invest 1,000, they would give them like 1,500, but it was $1,000 in on nothingness. So they created this interest, got other people from other hedge funds to come in, then they closed it out, they helped their customers, and then just shorted all the rest of these hedge funds, and they just did this over and over and over again. It's super illegal, but that's what some of that Wall Street bets feels like, is like, again, if you take a step back, there could be 10 guys in a room that are looking at this stuff saying, like, if we do this, which causes this, which does this, and we sit right here, profit, collapse, don't care. We profited. Like the guys who started the GameStop thing, if they looked at this and said, all right, in 2 years, we're going to start this insanity. GameStop is $1 a share right now. We're going to, for 2 years, we're going to trickle invest, trickle, to the point where all of a sudden they have 100,000 shares, right? And then they cause this nonsense. They're $1 a share at 100,000 shares. When it became $420 a share, those guys made millions of dollars. And if it fails, they don't care.
I mean, that's exactly what happened, though. I mean, they started
Right,
buying
but
up
that's
all the
the-
short stock, so it
that's the
rose to
scary
that in a
part.
moment. And some people sold it, some people didn't. Some people are still
Right, but-
holding on to it. So
But the scary part, though, is that if you're not one of those people, you are exposed.
Yeah.
Like the guy who it ended up being a fake story, but that doesn't mean somebody didn't think about it, where he put out a second mortgage on his home to buy this stock. If he buys it at 270 and
Yeah.
it falls to 1, tough shit.
well, and
Like,
not to mention that you should never
Sorry
take out
about ya.
any sort of loan ever to invest with, because usually your
well, that's also
rate of
very good
return is
advice,
never going to
yeah.
be over your interest rate. So
Right.
that's just dumb to begin with, you know. But well, so one of the things too, though, that is interesting about the crypto thing that I'm doing right now is that there is institutional money behind essentially like crypto banks. And so my
The infrastructure.
my crypto that I'm not trading sits in this bank, and this bank then loans money just like a normal bank based upon my crypto balance. So I'm earning like 8%, APR right now on
Yeah.
like my balance. So there's certain things like that are happening that like institutional banks can't do, where I'm
Right.
making money just by having it sit there, doing
Well, yeah,
absolutely nothing.
you're in the banking system that we were in when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were kids, if you opened up a savings account, it had like an 8% interest rate.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Right.
like a savings account was a valid option
Yeah.
when we were kids.
Now they're like, how
Now-
does 0.035 sound?
Yeah, like, hey, I've made 19 cents over the year.
yeah. Although,
Yeah, it always it made me laugh
yeah.
when I had to do my taxes, and the guy was like, "Do you have any savings accounts?" Like, listen, the interest on that, we're not going to worry about
Yeah.
that.
My grandma set up some CDs for me and my brothers when we were in high school, and I'd taken it out at some point in time in college, I think. But I was curious what it would have been, so I looked up what the APR was on it,
The maturation
if I had waited till now. So let's call it 25-ish years later.
Yeah.
And yeah, the interest would have been like $800. So it wasn't, it was just like that kind of thing. We're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, I guess in order to make it make sense, you have to invest, like $100,000 in a CD and then let it sit there,
forever,
yeah, for your 0.10% or whatever it is. So yeah, it's really interesting. Learned a lot of stuff just by looking at crypto. So
Sure.
I do it. If you guys got a little bit sitting around,
It's
If
fascinating,
you
man.
don't need
It's-
that extra Iron Man behind you, throw a little bit into the blockchain, baby. See what happens.
Finally getting a savings
Yeah, there you go.
for
Yeah.
down payment of something real.
Yeah. Nice. What are you thinking? Yeah.
Horse.
Not throwing money at rent forever. That,
Yeah. Yeah.
And who is?
And
Get you some land.
oh, I thought you
especially where
said
you're
a
at,
horse.
land.
Thought you were like, let's
Yeah.
buy yourself a
There's
horse
land everywhere to buy out in the east.
in Boston.
northeast.
No, but but I went like it's like don't buy into don't get a 5th story apartment.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
you're in the same position. You're paying property tax on land you don't own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's land ownership. I don't
I
even
hate
know.
being an adult. Can I
Fun.
stop being
Well, you
an
own
adult?
a house. You're a grown up, man. It's awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also have more Legos than most kids, so I think you're doing all right.
Mhm.
Yeah. You're crushing it, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Oh, you're
I think
killing
you
it.
do it.
Yeah. And you're going to have one, which is also exciting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And
Little
that-
guy.
Guy will hate everything you love. Because
That's fine.
that's how things go.
I'm prepared
Get
for
ready.
that.
Yeah.
We've
They
already
go,
talked about.
Legos suck, Dad, and blah.
Well, yeah, no. I
Yeah.
had this funny thought.
Keep him out of that man
We had
cave.
talked about this. We talked about the Disney Interstellar Starlighter Resort or whatever, where you spend like $5,000
right.
and then you get a 3-night experience. And somebody asked me like, what if he doesn't want to do that? Like, that's not going to stop me from going.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you're
Then he
ming
will
the
be
point of that.
miserable.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
will ignore him.
Like, we'll leave him with grandma and grandpa then, and I will go do this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he can stay at the Grandma and Grandpa resort.
Mm-hmm.
Which can be fun for a kid.
Yeah, it's true. Be better than Star Wars sometimes.
That's where I watched my Star Wars. Was at
With Grandma and
Grandma's
Grandpa?
house.
Yeah.
That's
She
awesome.
had cable. And I go, that's the only way I would watch Empire Strikes Back. Somehow I remember multiple times. It's like I go to her house. It was Shark Week. Always, somehow. Because Discovery had nothing else to show.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they just
Right.
showed Shark Week year round.
Oh, that's
so,
great.
Yeah.
Well, so before we go, do you want to see my new logo?
Yeah, plop it up.
Oh yeah, we do.
I got the
It's an
that
exclusive
MJ.
for you folks.
yeah exclusive. Whoops! Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Oh, your
whoa.
light's gone.
What? I put it in the
Just
wrong
deleted all of
box. There we go. I gotta share my screen first, though.
I would love if you show it and it's only like 20% of the layers are visible.
Yeah,
It's all cloudy, ghosty looking.
right. No, that's exactly
Just
what
all
you're
the
about to
on
see.
top
Oh, you're gonna have to break the overlay.
Yeah, I gotta share my screen here. Share screen. Burp. Share screen. Share that screen. Share sound. Share. All right. Can you see it?
And
wonder
I
if,
can put
I wonder
your
if the
emails
people
in
can
there.
see it though. Hang
I'll
on.
let you know in 20 seconds.
Yeah, I know, right? Here, should I put it over here? Nope. Oh wait, there we go. Put it over there. But now you guys can't see it, can you?
No.
Oh, it played.
Did
Nope,
it?
Wait, nope. Hang on.
Oh yeah, it's there. Can you guys see it?
Uh,
No.
I can see it.
Okay, hang on.
The feed hasn't caught up yet.
We're gonna try something different. Share screen, screen 2, share. There we go. Now we're talking. Yeah. Now you should be able to see it and the people can see it. Can you guys see it? Is it black?
It's black.
I
There's
see a black
screen
screen, yeah.
with a play. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
you ready? Here we go. Boom.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
So douchey.
Where'd you... Is that After Effects? Where'd you build that?
Yeah, it's an After Effects template from Motion Array. So it basically gives you you pull in the After Effects project, and then build the logo, put the logo in, figure out the script and all that kind of stuff, and then like that
It does.
that YouTube logo at the end was another like motion graphic that I pulled in. And they had like blue ones and red ones, so I kind of like tweaked it and everything. So yeah, and then but what's cool about like the After Effects the template that you pull in, it's already built the stuff to create the motion and create the neon look and everything. So that's already built into it. So it's kind of just drag and drop once you've built in your graphics and stuff, which is super cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I need to play with After Effects at some
yeah,
point.
I really like After Effects a lot. I do a lot of After Effects stuff nowadays. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
I worked on After Effects when it was version 1.0.
Oof, that's pretty
And
cool.
it is not what it is today.
Right? I wonder what that was like.
It was one of my least favorite things I ever used
Really?
at the time.
Yeah.
At the time.
Wow.
Because it was
I
so
didn't know what it was yet. Yeah.
it didn't know what it was. It was so hard to use, so rough. Now it's definitely like everything you just described is like, man, if it had
Yeah.
done that when I used it.
I feel like that was Illustrator when I first started working with it. Before I learned how to use Photoshop, first few times with Illustrator, I was like, you don't know what you are, and you need to stop it.
It's such a different. It's like a whole different brain. It's like
Yep,
I
it is,
literally
it is.
once I went into Photoshop, it's like I can't. For my
Yeah.
job, I'll try, and I'm like, I have to relearn all of this, and I have to use like a different part of my brain to do it.
Well, that's what
Because
is,
your approach, everything about it's
Yep.
so different.
especially
Yep.
being that now that Adobe is all about the Creative Cloud. That's what confuses me. Like doing text in Photoshop should be exactly the same way in Premiere and in After Effects. Like, no, I'm just
Yeah.
talking about like the
No, I mean,
drop
right,
down
you're not
menu. Like
wrong. Yeah.
when I'm putting in the text. So in After Effects, they're not active fonts. So in Photoshop, you can just scroll over the font and it's going to change it. It's just going to cycle it.
Right.
and it doesn't even show true type on After Effects. And in like Photoshop, you have the option of clicking on just the fonts that I have from the Creative Cloud, so the ones I just get from there from Adobe Fonts, and then I can also choose like serif, slab serif, like all the different kinds. But in After Effects, it's like I'm looking at a program from 2001. You know, it's like it's just weird. I don't understand why they don't just go seamless across the board so that your interface is exactly the same in all of those different areas. Because there's no reason why it shouldn't be. It's all the same.
There is. I mean, there's a reason.
What's the reason, though?
The computer science behind it, of the way that those programs render that stuff, is totally different. It's not an active font.
Well, it's active-ish. I mean, Premiere and After Effects function pretty much exactly the same in terms of like how you color and scopes and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same. I just don't understand why the layout can't be the same. Did you just have a fart?
No. I was trying to think of a way to describe it. It's just one of those like.
Was it just the approach of when they were built originally, and that coding and that direction?
Yeah.
Right. After Effects was never designed to be a creative suite. It was expecting you to be creative first, and then bring in the assets and do work with the assets, not actually change the assets in that program.
Mm-hmm. Well, but now that's literally exactly what you do. So I don't see why it hasn't changed or evolved.
But the kernel based, like the core logical code of that, they didn't crush and start over.
Yeah, that's dumb. I mean, that's why I import. I don't actually do any text in Premiere. I do it all in Photoshop and then import it. Because but see, that's the other thing though too. Like everything stays sticky. So like if I change my Photoshop file, it changes in Premiere. I just don't get why. Like then you can't just give me fonts. Make the fonts change when I roll over them. That's all I want. Literally all I want in life. Just change that. We're good to go.
Do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, if you don't know if you got to memorize what bookend 4 is or whatever,
yeah,
font, and you're like, yeah,
it's crazy.
I get you.
Y'all crazy.
Y'all crazy.
All right, folks.
Computer engineers.
Let's call it a night. Thanks for listening. We sure did bramble. I feel like Nick and I just took over that whole thing, and we just left you in the.
When you're
Iron
talking
Man
about
dust.
investing in money, I'm like,
Yeah,
things that I haven't had ever. So.
All right, well, me neither. I'm relatively new to it.
No, like I say, I'm out of my hole, and I'm finally
nice.
somewhere.
Feels good.
Nice.
It does.
Feels really good. Yeah. So just line them up, Iron Man. Get yourself some suits. Yeah.
How could I blow my money?
Yeah. Either buy yourself a horse, or some horse,
Or some swampland in
or
Florida.
a house. Yeah, so many choices now.
I don't think I'm going to buy land in Florida because there's going to be a sinkhole underneath that.
Yeah, or Texas. Yeah.
Or anywhere. Siberia's blowing up with methane explosions.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this installment of Smoking Hot Nerds Podcast Nerds After Dark. We would very much love it if you felt like subscribing to our YouTube channel, getting a little bit of play. People are loving it, loving the banter, or at the very least, subscribing on Apple or Spotify would be fantastic. So and also apologize. I think there's a few files that are a little goofy, so I got to go in and figure out what's what and see if there's some out there that are not functioning properly, but we'll get to that. So, yeah.
There's just a tail end.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, have a great night, and we'll